Hello, good morning, and welcome everyone to day two coverage of the Cosmic Crown Showdown. We hope you guys are ready for some great adventures here for day two coverage. Let's go ahead and get started by introducing ourselves. My name is Adam Takata. You can call me Snake, and I'm joined with my co-host and co-caster Patrick Sarmiento, aka Hacky. Hacky, how are you doing this morning?
Doing well, Snake. It's been a great day yesterday, and today we've got a draft going. We'll have matches for you shortly. It's looking to be pretty sweet.
Indeed. So let's do a recap of yesterday's tournament action and take a look at our top 8 finishers. We have Ruik Thar coming in with the 7-0 perfect run with Lady Avalanche, that momentum deck doing work there. We have Hyakabe with 6 wins playing Nineveh, Future with 6 wins as Haraza the Incinerator, Sadistic as Cassia Goldenlight, Traxxum with another Lady Avalanche momentum deck, and the 6 through 8 decks were Haraza the Incinerator, piloted by Arcaz, Bottle Gnomes, and Intruria. Interesting stats here. Last top 8 for the Cosmic Crown Showdown, we had Bardock the Butcher as 50% of the pool, and now we see the Ruby Sapphire Sockets taking up 4 of the 8 champions, making the top 8. What do you think about this list, Hacky?
The top 8 does not have any mono blood, but if you extend it just a little bit, 9th, 11th, and 12th place were also all mono blood. That Bardock blood deck was actually 29 players in the pool. That's a third of the pool, and many of them did do well, but just not making it into that top 8 cut. Many of them being at the 5 and 2 range. But Haraza also a strong deck, and last CCS and being popular in the last few weeks of Hex Bashes, that made it the deck to beat. So we saw decks built specifically to take them down, and tech in all of the other strong decks in the format. And in the end, what came out are the ramp decks, the Harazas, and some Diamond Sapphire control.
So let's take a look at how these players qualified for the CCS. If you notice, all but one of the players qualified in Constructed, and we have Arcaz as the only limited player to make the top 8 from day number 1. So Arcaz has some experience here with Limited, probably a little bit more than some of the other players, just focused on Limited, but all these players definitely have a chance to win some of the prizes. One other thing of note that I thought was pretty interesting, we actually have 3 players representing the Prismatic Conclave, Sadistic, Traxxum, and Bottle Gnomes. So Prismatic Conclave has to be pretty happy with the fact that they have 3 of the top 8 players in the day 2 for the CCS. So good luck to all our players today as they vie for the prizes. And let's take a look at the rules. Stage 1 was yesterday, standard constructed. Today is going to be a draft, which they have already started. They will open up 2 packs of Dead and Winter, 1 pack of Frost Hearts, and build a 40-card deck to go ahead and compete in day 2 today. We didn't have anybody miss out, so the 9th and 10th players, unfortunately, were not able to compete because we had all 8 players from yesterday present for today. Now, let's talk a little bit about what these players are going to be vying for. And of this $5,000 prize pool, first place is going to walk away with $2,000 and the Cosmic Crown Showdown animated sleeve. And of course, you know, like anything, having those sleeves is a prestigious thing. The money is great, but also being able to show that you have these CCS sleeves, and they are very limited. Only a few people have them, but definitely something that players are striving for. Coming in at second place, we'll walk away with $1,000. Not too shabby. Third through fourth place, $500. And fifth through eighth place will be walking away with $250. So all players in the money today, but obviously getting that first win will double you up from $250 to $500. Getting that next win will get you opportunity to win at least $1,000 in first place, walking away with $2,000. Hacky, all these players got to be happy with this opportunity to earn some money and, of course, taking down that first place prize.
That sleeve strikes fear into players opposite you on the ladder or in your booster drafts or Evo Sealed Gauntlets. And Well, this is the highest prize pool tournament in Hex right now, so these players want to take home that lion's share. It's going to be fast, furious, and full of action.
Indeed it is, Hacky. Indeed it is. So as a reminder, we started a little bit later because the players are going to be drafting. Round 1 has started, so we'll be a little bit before we start with coverage, but we have 4 spoilers for you today. But I also want to remind everybody about the release celebration that's going to be starting this coming Friday, the 16th of March. Doombringer will be launching. There is not a specific date. However, they did say the release celebration will happen Friday through Monday. So your opportunity to get in on that. And it'll be all Doombringer all the time, but also a chance to win those alternate art cards, the Root Beer Floater and the World Scar, by participating and winning in the specific tournament queues. So let's go over those as well. Release Celebration Evo Gauntlet queue requires a combination of 500 platinum, whether that be 2 Doombringer boosters and 100 plat, or 1 Doombringer booster and 300 plat. Prizes there. 5 wins will net you that Doombringer and World Scar alternate art card. 3 wins will get you that Doombringer pack that you open up. And the first one will offer you the Doombringer pack that you'll open up as well. And just for participating in the Evo Gauntlet, you'll receive a Root Beer Float AA card. So definitely make sure you get in on that. The draft queue is going to be a combination of 700 platinum, 3 Doombringer boosters or 100 plat, all the way down to 1 Doombringer booster and 500 plat. 3 wins will net you that's 6 Doombringer boosters, the World Scar AA card, and the Root Beer Floater AA card. So good there. 2 wins will get you 2 boosters and the Root Beer Floater AA card. 1 win will get you 1 standard rare and that Root Beer Floater AA card. 0 wins will still net you the AA Root Beer Floater. For the sealed gauntlet queue, this is one of my favorite queues to join during celebration release celebration events, is a combination of 1400 platinum, and that'll be either 16 Doombringer boosters up to 200 platinum, all the way down to 1 Doombringer booster and 1200 platinum. 5 wins will net you that 6 packs of Doombringer, along with the World Scar AA card and the Root Beer Floater AA card, all the way down to 0 wins. So no matter what, as long as you participate in a tournament, you will still receive that Root Beer Floater AA card. So make sure you guys get on the release celebration. I'm sure there'll be plenty of streamers out there bringing you as much Doombringer as you can handle. So I look forward to that.
This is your best opportunity to get in that sealed gauntlet queue with the 6 packs. It's a bunch of packs, but if you're planning to jumpstart your collection of Doombringer, that is one of the best times to get in that sealed queue and play with your cards.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about spoilers. And we've got a brand new spoiler for you guys, actually 4 of them today. We're going to do one here at the beginning, one after the end of each round. So we'll be bringing you that, and we have some exciting ones for you. We're going to start off with our first one of the stream, and this is going to be Totem of Voidstar, 2 cost, single blood, single sapphire, 2/2 Chaos Touch Totem. You can pay 1 and discard a card. This gets flight and lethal this turn. When this deals damage to a champion, put target card discarded this turn from a crypt into your hand. Hacky, what do you think of Totem of Voidstar?
It is a 2/2 flight in Prismatic that you can give flight and lethal. So the lethal makes it so other flight blockers might want to stop it. And if it connects, you can get that card back, but not just any card back. You can choose, no, the card that you discarded this turn. You can get that card back. And perhaps if you discarded other things for what seems to be a theme of discarding cards in Blood Sapphire for powerful effects, that could give you other things back. Does need that extra resource to gain that flight and lethal, but that is 2 damage a turn if your opponent isn't able to handle it.
But the other thing too is, Hacky, it says this target card discarded this turn. So if you're able to make your opponent discard as well and connect, you can take a card from their crypt as well. So
yeah, that is a cool thing. If you can make them discard a random card or just any card, you might like what they've discarded. So a way to steal cards and make them your own.
I mean, there's so many combinations with this. There's also recursion decks, which is good. You know, you can start throwing stuff into the crypt with this and then bring it back. Sapphire Blood, there's a good recursion deck out there where you're just bringing stuff back. And this could probably substitute for one of those. And yeah, cards like Demented Whisper would be great. Primordial Cockatrice, and then Swing In. They've discarded cards. You can pick some of those cards out. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities here with Totem of the Void Star, or Totem of Void Star. I like this mechanic a lot. I think it's going to be a fun card for sure. Okay, so we are currently waiting for our players to finish up round one, or at least do some matches where we can start casting round one matches. We can't tell you the matchups for round number one. We have Hyakame versus Ruikthar, Etruria versus Arcaz, Traxum versus Future, Bottle Gnomes versus Sadistic, all going in. Looks like a couple of games are now in reserves. But yeah, we're excited to do it. Quarterfinals underway right now. Again, each of these players are guaranteed at least $250. If you get a win, then you double up. You're guaranteed at least $500. Double up again, and you're guaranteed at least $1,000 with a chance to walk away with that ultimate prize of $2,000 and the animated Cosmic Crown Showdown sleeve.
We likely have a few minutes still until we want to start coverage. Do we have some information about our top 8? We get to know them a little bit.
We do. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's talk about a little bit about each of these players. And that way you guys can get to know them. So we're going to start off with the first match underway in game number 1. And this is going to be Hyakame. Saw Hyakame yesterday in the stream. Hails from Japan, 20 years old, got a top 8 in the CCS and a top 8 in the 5 Shards weekly series. Fun facts about Hyakame: loves to play Hex. Favorite thing to do in Hex is to transform into the Paragon of Thought. Definitely wanted to stress that to me when they sent the email. Tournament time puts a dent into his sleeping habits due to being in Japan, but he says it's well worth it to be able to compete in these tournaments, and we saw Hyakame do fairly well yesterday. And especially with Paragon of Thought, but definitely wanted to stress that he loves Hex and loves the Paragon of Thought.
Is powerful, and you can definitely do much worse picking a sweet Hex avatar for yourself. Look at that sweet image you have up there.
So Hyakame is going up against Ruikthar. Let's go ahead and bring Ruikthar up. Our player from Argentina. Ruikthar is 26 years old, hails from Punta Alta, Buenos Aires in Argentina. Team is Pinto Essa. Tournament stats has a CCS top 8 in the Immortal Championship, and of course, 7 top 8s in the 5 Shards weekly series. Loves to play metal, plays the bass, and practices with his friends when he has free time. He started playing Hex about 1 year ago after playing about 12 years of MTG. And he likes to do role-playing stuff, so in his role-playing stories, he likes to include Hex characters, and especially the Merry Caravan. So he loves to incorporate stuff. He loves Hex and puts it into his role-playing games.
What class would I need to be Puff the Rainbow?
So those two featured players up against each other in round number 1. Or the quarterfinals here of the draft. Let's take a look at our next matchup. This is going to be Etruria versus Arcaz. So Etruria, otherwise known as Verukiel, if you've ever watched the official channel on Thursday, joins Alucard sometimes. 25 years old from Granite Falls. His team clan is Infinite. Tournament stats include 2 top 8s in the CCS, 1 top 8 in the Bash, 1 top 8 in the Clash, and 3 top 8s in the 5 Shards weekly series. He says he speaks Japanese conversationally, which is a lot better than me. Enjoys dream crafting, makes constructed decks that he enjoys thematically, and puts his own flair into them. And is known as Jank Master Flex within his team. That's a pretty good name, Jank Master Flex.
Well, maybe we'll see the return of Jankbot someday.
Maybe so, maybe so. Next match we have Traxum versus Future. So let's take a look at Traxum. Traxum is 33 years old, hails from Canada, New York. Part of the Prismatic Conclave, one of 3 members in the top 8. Has 2 CCS top 8s, one top 8 in the Hex Bash, and one top 8 in the 5 Stars Weekly Series. He absolutely loves the golf. He wanted to stress that. Favorite movie all time is Demolition Man. Sandra Bullock in that. Oh, I love that movie. And if he ever gets a pet rabbit, he wants to name him Kagu. So that is Traxum.
Tend to take random things and throw them in your trash.
And he is going to be facing off against Future. So let's take a look a little bit about Future. Future is 28 years old, hails from Moscow. He's part of the Hexplorers. Tournament stats include a top 8 in the CCS, a top 8 in the Bash, and 2 top 8s in the 5 Stars Weekly Series. He's the 2009 WoW TCG Russian National Champion. Considers playing aggro requires as much skill as control to be the biggest lie in TCGs, and he wanted to stress that he plays aggro decks, and he definitely did that yesterday. And our final matchup of the stream is Bottle Gnomes versus Sadistic. I didn't get a player card for Bottle Gnomes, but we can take a look at Sadistic. Sadistic is 29 years old, hails from Paris, France, part of the Prismatic Conclave. CCS stats include top 8 in the CCS, top 5 top 8s in the Hex Bash, 1 top 8 in the Platinum Plunder, and 2 top 8s in the 5 Stars Weekly Series. Has a PhD in physical chemistry. Has played a lot of TCGs, but never competitively until now. Loves Hex mechanic and art style, and considers himself to be the most terrible cook on the planet. We did mention this yesterday. Terrible cook on the planet. So,
can we find out what's in that feral fuel?
So, yeah, again, currently we're just waiting for matches to finish up. Hopefully you guys got to know a little bit more about our players here in the top 8. I always said it's important to get to know the players, especially our more competitive players that you'll see in these tournaments. Get to know them better, get to know their backgrounds. We obviously see 3 players that are part of the Prismatic Conclave, who obviously probably have done a lot of work in helping each other out to get to this point. So I think it's good to learn more about our community and our great tournament players.
Players from all around the world in here, even so far, Japan, Argentina. It is good to see. And everyone united here, playing some Hex, competing. It's all...
Yep. Fire Splitter, we did have a spoiler earlier. I will put that back up on the screen just for case those who are just joining us for the stream. And that spoiler was the Totem of Void Star. 2 cost, single blood, single sapphire, 2/2, Chaos Touch Totem, pay 1, discard a card. This gets flight and lethal this turn. And when this deals damage to a champion, put target card discarded this turn from Crypt into your hand. So we will have 3 more spoilers left, one after the end of each of these rounds here in day 2 coverage of the Cosmic Crown Showdown. Currently in the quarterfinals, as players have drafted their decks and they're going against each other to see who will advance to the semifinals.
Some other things about this Totem of Void Star that we can look at. Funny enough, Withering Gaze, the current standard legal look at your opponent's hand and remove something. Blood has a lot of these effects over the course of Hex. There isn't one currently where you choose and discard, but where for Immortal with things like Inquisition or Withering, the other one from Shattered Destiny. Or if there is a future card that looks at your opponent's hand and discards them, Totem of Void Star would be able to pick that card specifically.
No, absolutely. That's a great point, Hacky. Again, this deck, I think this card will see a lot of play in decks. I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to be using this a lot for their Blood Sapphire decks, and I think it's going to be a cool card. I can't wait to see what players do with this.
Yeah, Mono Blood has just been so strong that, in fact, no other real deck in this metagame, in this constructed, doing well with a mix of blood. So Sapphire Blood being a traditionally strong control archetype. We'll see if Doombringer brings tools for this this combination to shine. With the Flight, it fills a lot of the same role as Vampire Prince, so you need to spend resources to give it that flight and continuous damage. but can provide that discard support to really take it to your opponent.
Yeah, I like this. I like this a lot. I think this is a great card, and I'm excited about Doombringer. Again, as a reminder, Doombringer's launch date has not been officially released, but the release celebration is going to be happening on Friday through Monday. So make sure you get on that. Get as much hex in as you can, because it's going to be all Doombringer. So if you're trying to complete your set, it is a good time to do so, as you will be playing with nothing but Doombringer.
Also worth noting, though, that the triple Doombringer format is going to be the format for afterwards. So
Oh, that's true.
it is used to it is for like say for set 8 for Dead of Winter. It was like that, and it will be for set 10. But sweet promos just for playing what you're already going to be playing and a good time over the weekend. I'm up for that.
Heck yeah, indeed. All right, so it looks like we have our first matchup here. This is going to be Arcaz versus Etruria. We have Arcaz as Swamp Butt, Etruria as Cassia Goldenlight. And let's take a look at opening hands here for both players. We see Arcaz with Double Ruby Shard, Candlelight, Livance, Searing Spit Flame, the Black Heart, and the Feralfill Guzzler. There you go. Thank you. And for Etruria, we see triple Diamond Shard, Ruby Shard. Looks like Light 'em Up, Incest Igniter, and that's the Escalate Charge, Fortified Charge, right? Yes, Fortified Charge. There, Hacky. What do you think about both these starting hands?
We are seeing the first peek at 2 of our draft decks, and it looks like both Arcaz and Etruria found themselves in Ruby. Arcaz, funny enough, with Candlelight and Livance Claw. Expect to see in the Candlekin deck that Etruria seems to have pulled with Light 'em Up, but both solid Ruby cards. Arcaz is Swamp Butt. Swamp Butt wants to play lots of actions, and Candlelight promotes the actions that you play. We saw that in one of the Candlekin decks in yesterday's Constructed. 6 damage to target opposing champion or troop for 6, and buffing all the other actions. And as Swamp Butt, you create lots of actions and put them into your deck, so they will all get buffed by Candlelight. 0 cost, 1 damage to a troop or champion, and draw a card. Arcaz with 2 Ruby likely keeps that. Maybe some light Blood Splash for Bleak Harvester, 3/1 life drain. But gets Feralfill Guzzler out, plays those actions. We'll probably want a little bit more. In this 8-8-7 draft format, there aren't as many Fate Weave Shards to go around. But that also may be a mulligan, as in draft, you do want to ensure you get to your 3s and 4s. Etruria, on the other hand, play aside this Light 'em Up. Playing actions will bring the Light 'em Up back. Actions that or any non-combat damage onto your opponent. But with Fortified Charge, Etruria doesn't really have an early play. We have the late Incense Igniter on turn 5, but Etruria seems to be on Candlekin, Elementals, Ruby, and Diamond. But that's a popular archetype in this format, so we'll see how much of that Etruria was able to put together.
All right, let's get on the action here with the quarterfinals match between Arcaz and Etruria. Etruria using those Hero Fall sleeves, Arcaz with the standard sleeves. Gotta love that. Let's go ahead and get it on the action between both players.
Out that Etruria is running a 47 card deck.
Interesting there. Etruria deciding to go with a little extra cards. Let's see if that helps or hinder Etruria in this match. We see standard resource play here for both players. Light them up probably for Etruria. Indeed, creates that Candlekin. Turn passes back to Arcaz. Ruby off the top. Black Blood Shard out, and now a Trapper Keeper. No swing into that Trapper Keeper. Back over to Arcaz. Plays a Blood Shard. Champion power. Here comes a swing for 2.
Point out the Emperor Nox that Arcaz is playing. When a troop control attacks, double that troop's attack, a bomb that Arcaz is likely going to make use of.
All right, Etruria now playing a Diamond Shard. 3 resources. Here comes the swing. Back to Arcaz, Squirming Terror off the top, so an unblockable troop as well. Decision point. Here comes the swing. Jackhammer comes down. Ruby Shard for Etruria. Candlelight Power activates, creates a second Candlekin, passes the turn. Arcaz now with the Blood Shard, 5 resources. Swing with that Trapper Keeper. Squirming Terror comes down.
Going to represent a big threat. Jackhammer is by far the largest troop on that board, and Skirming Terror gets +2 attack if you have the largest troop on the board or when it attacks.
And here we go. Back over to Etruria, 5 resources. Here comes Searing Spitflame. Turn passes back to Arcaz. Swamp Gas going to take care of one of the Candlekin, and another Candlekin down, draws 2 cards. Runic Fury, Emperor Nox, and Killblade in the hand for Arcaz. Still missing that 6 resource for Emperor Nox.
Swampbutt creates every 3 charges 4 Swamp Gas in the deck, so being lucky and seeing them close to the top, drawing themselves as well, take care of those early Candlekin.
All right, so attack here for Arcaz, facing off against a Searing Flame, has that Trapper Keeper 2-1, full swing inbound. Let's see what Etruria wants to do here. That Jack
holding up Runic Fury, so is going to be able to use that if Searing Spitfire takes the block on the 2-1 with Swift Strike. Etruria does not have the resources open, played the Searing Spitfire for a blocker, maybe intending to block and kill the Jacked Hammer.
Decision point here for Etruria at 17 health. Does block the Trapper Keeper, but is met with that Runic Fury. Loses the troop. Killblade for Arcaz as the turn passes back to Etruria. 6 open resources now.
Able to deal with those blocker Candlekin just is representing a lot of damage Etruria took, and Etruria just doesn't have those early troops. And
that'll do it. Arcaz, wow, we'll take game 1. Etruria says, nope, can't do anything about it. We'll scoop and go to game number 2.
Ruby Blood has a lot of high attack, a lot of evasion, and we also are seeing Crush from Arcaz. Etruria can need a lot of cards to get that going. We didn't see Choir of Lumos, Wax Dawn are some of the cards to look for in Candlekin, and it might be that somebody else in this draft may have the cards Etruria is looking for. So Arcaz with Emperor Nox, a strong legendary, didn't even need to be played, but the evasive and Crush with combat tricks from Blood and Ruby seem to be what Arcaz is going for.
Gotta be a good thing when you have a powerful legendary and you don't even need it to win. Also, what helped out there too was that hit with the Trapper Keeper, giving that additional Gladiator to that Jacked Hammer, making it pretty strong. But here we go into game number 2 between both players. Arcaz up 1-0 against Etruria. Let's take a look at opening hands here for both players. Etruria here with double Diamond Shard, Ruby Shard, Dual Shard, Frost Blast, Fortified Charge, and Threads of Life. For Arcaz, we see triple Blood Shard, Unravel, that Live Ant's Claw, Ferrofuel Guzzler, and Candlelight. So no Ruby there for Arcaz. Hacky, what do you like and dislike about these hands?
Arcaz is missing a Ruby, but really the Ferrofuel Guzzler is the only card that needs it. Otherwise, Arcaz might be able to sit on this Unravel. We don't know the ratio of Arcaz's threshold, but with 3 resources already, he may, and depending on how much focus on Ruby Arcaz has, he may opt to keep that. Would not be surprised on the draw for a mulligan, though, to just get one of each threshold and enable a better hand. Also, a little bit high cost cards in Candlelight, and the Live Ant's Claw may prompt wanting to get some earlier game cards. Etruria has a similar problem as the previous game, though. Frost Blast, Fortified Charge, and Threads of Life, none of them represent troops, but Etruria has shards, keeping this very slow hand. Fortified Charge and Threads of Life need other cards in play. I actually think Etruria needs to redraw this and hope for a play, as that was one of the factors Etruria wasn't able to build a board to face Arcaz's aggression in the previous game.
All right, let's get in on the action between both these players. Arcaz looking to seal the deal to make it to the semis. Etruria trying to force a game number 3. Let's see what happens next. Mulligan here for Etruria. Threads of Life, Fortified Charge, double Ruby, double Diamond. And a mulligan from Arcaz as well.
It looks like Arcaz has Nox Animist as well, being able to get Blood and Ruby. Not as common of an archetype to get, but has early play. Still missing Ruby, kind of like a trio, pretty much redrawing that hand with one fewer card. I don't think either player wants to go below this, but
Yeah, this is a rough position here. Oh, another mulligan from Arcaz. So double blood, Musagi Deadeye, Portal Shard. This is going to be an interesting
that
keep.
just might be enough.
Both players playing out resources out to 2. We'll see that Musagi Deadeye for Arcaz. Turn passes back to Truya. Ruby Shard comes down. Nothing to do but wait. Passes the turn. Arcaz now with a Ruby Threshold. Swamp Gas entering the deck. Swing for 2. Trapper Keeper for Arcaz. Enlightened Destiny for Truya off the top. We haven't seen that yet. Overwhelming Guilt on that Musagi Deadeye. And we'll give a Phantom, which immediately dies to that Deadeye's Death Cry ability.
Light and Destiny is very expensive unless you can get 5 elementals in play, and Arcaz pulling a Swamp Gas early is not going to help that.
That Trapper Keeper connected with Truya means the troop in hand will get Gladiator as well, and a Truya here in a bad spot as Arcaz is continuing to build the board and swing in here. Here comes a swing for 5. Etruria at 14.
Etruria using Threads is going to use Threads of Life on this Candlekin just to get a blocker. That's desperation, as it can get something more powerful. It isn't an elemental.
And Etruria here,
but this damage is going to be mounted.
Etruria at a bad spot here. Arcaz at 23. Etruria at 14. Here comes a swing. A buff here. Representing 10 damage.
It's tough here. Etruria does not have the attack to trade with any of these and has to decide how much damage Etruria can take.
Decides to chump against the Trapper Keeper. Takes 6. Goes to 8. The Nox army continues. See activation of Kindle Kit. Creating that Candlekin. Fortified charge. All troops get +1/+1. But still at 11 health. Arcaz nearly or more than double his health at 23.
Got an extra rage too from Nox Zealot. It's going to be 3 attack. Has additional Gladiator. 11 and has used this fortified charge just to be able to trade with some of these.
So Arcaz here should see a full swing. See aggression here. And we do. Full swing inbound. 16 damage. 2 blockers available.
Etruria can block the Nox Animist and the Feral Fuel Guzzler, trade with them, but would take 11 back.
20 damage now represented. Etruria goes down to 5. And unfortunately here, not much going to do it. Enlightened Destiny, not an answer. And Arcaz will take that down 2-0.
Both players mulliganing down to 6 and 5 cards, respectively. Etruria ending up with 7 resources total out of those cards. 1 removal, but not enough to block, trade, and handle all of the troops that Arcaz threw.
Plus, playing additional cards in deck probably was a problem as well.
No, that was a visual bug, as it turns out.
Was it?
If
okay.
If I pause at the right before mulligans happen, it looks like the second player's deck does not have their number counted. It's an interesting quirk we learned today about the replay feature.
Good deal. So yeah, that deck though from Arcaz, that Ruby Blood deck looks pretty strong. But we'll take a look at some of the other decks here in our coverage of the Cosmic Crown Showdown day number 2. Again, the top 8 players here guaranteed at least $250. But obviously, if they get a win, they'll double up to $500 in the semis. And if they can make it into the finals, they're guaranteed at least $1,000, with the winner walking away with $2,000 and those Cosmic Crown Showdown animated sleeves. Looks like we're loading up.
But regardless, Etruria has taken home $250 of that prize pool today, so not bad at all.
So it looks like we're going to be downloading our next match. This is going to be Traxxum versus Future. Let's go ahead and look at those player cards again. We'll start with Future. Again, Future, one of our players from Russia, 28 years old, from Moscow, part of Hexplorers, has a CCS top eight in the Bash, and 2 5 shards weekly series. 2009 WoW TCG Russian national champion. He considers playing aggro requires as much skill as control to be the biggest lie in TCG, and plays aggro decks. We'll see if he's actually playing an aggro deck today in the draft. Let's take a look at his opponent, and that is Traxxum. Traxxum is 33 years old, from Canada, Guay, New York. Part of the Prismatic Conclave, one of 3 members in the top 8 today. Has 2 CCS top 8s, 1 Hex Bash top 8, and 1 5 Shards top 8. Absolutely loves to golf. Favorite movie all time is Demolition Man, and if he ever gets a pet rabbit, he wants to name him Kagu. So let's get in on the action with both these players. Traxxum playing Yarna of Lost Voices versus Future as Bardock the Butcher. Opening hand for Traxxum, we see double Sapphire Shard, Runic Decay, Bone Tide, Fallen to Despair, swooping, I forgot
the Gravitros
and Zeoda's Familiar. Over for Future, we see double Blood Shard, Diamond Shard, Squirming Terror, looks like Arctic Grizzly, Nameless Host, I believe, and the Diamond Troop, which names escapes me at this moment. Devoted Luminous, thank you. Hacky, what do you think?
All right, Traxxum has drafted up Yarna of Lost Voices, and we see a few cards in hand that want to bury your opponent's deck and do things based on their crypt. But Yarna also, if the opponent fears a sheer amount of bury, becomes a 4 charge, draw a card. Your opponent gets the choice, draw a card, or bury 5 cards from their deck. Traxxum is missing a blood, but that isn't core to this hand at the moment. With Zeoda's Familiar, just a solid card, a 2/3 for 3 with Fate Weave, draw a card for 5 resources, a way to sink those resources. I don't think Traxxum might like this hand. There may be some cheaper cards and cards that fill the board that Traxxum may want. So I think Traxxum redraws here. On the other side, Future, a solid starting hand, a very good Vile Squirmhound, 1/3 that buries cards. Traxxum would like that card, but as solid troop in blood, gets plus attack for every troop buried. Citizen, the Arctic Grizzly could be even played for 3. Everything in Future's hand is playable and is a troop, and in limited, troops are your bread and butter. The Steadfast, Momentum, Devoted Luminist as well. So Future probably keeping Traxxum, wanting some more cards if Traxxum is looking to bury out for value to enable cards like Bone Tide. Traxxum will need a little bit more, but that Runic Decay also pretty good there.
All right, let's get on the action between both these players. Traxxum and Future, both looking to make it and advance to the semifinals as we get underway. Both players playing their standard turn 1 resources. Traxxum looking to find another resource, finds Culmination of Blood off the top. We go back over to Future. Diamond Shard comes down, and here comes that Vile Squirmhound. That's where the berry comes in. Traxxum top decks a resource here. Will play Fallen Despair. That means he will bury 2 cards from Future at the start of his turn. Vile Squirmhound swinging in, burying 2 as well. And we see that Nameless Host come out.
Primordial Grok is drawn that can exhaust 2 troops when used from hand.
Activation of that Grok will lock down the Vile Squirmhound. That Devoted Luminous, though, 4/4 Steadfast swinging in. Traxxum now at 18. Arctic Grizzly gives Future some health. Turn back to Traxxum. Here comes that Sapphire Shard. Culmination of Blood still a ways away.
Your starting hand suggests he's just building up that board with troops and making Traxxum answer it.
Traxxum does get the draw thanks to Champion Power. Future deciding you can have a card. I don't want to bury any.
Troops in Future's crypt.
We see Bone Tide here. taking out that troop. Devoted Luminous now gone. Diamond Shard for Future. 2 troops left on the field. One of them foul Squirmhound. Here comes the swing. Buries. That also makes the Squirmhound a 3-3. So tracks him down to 12. Culmination, though, at 3 for Traxum.
These troops with these diamond troops with 5 defense are going to be really hard for Traxum to deal with. And really, Traxum can only try to block what he can.
Traxum here deciding to have that sweeping Gravitas block the Vile Squirmhound. Inner Fire, though, look at that. That's going to do the work. Keep Vile Squirmhound on the board. Traxum down to 5. Future at 35. 30 health separating both players. Traxum plays that Blood Shard. But
between the Ebonhorn and the Inner Fire giving the Vile Squirmhound life drain +2/+2 surviving that potential trade, it's going to be too much. Traxum's removal wasn't able to kill anything past 2 defense after a while. A nice play on Bonetide to kill the momentum troop, giving it Bonetide -2/-2 permanently, but the board just overwhelming.
And Future showing a little bit of dominance here in Game 1 of the quarterfinals. Players will go to reserves, and we'll bring you Game 2 between Traxum and Future.
That was a great hand for Future. Traxum's hand, we looked at it, and it was kind of a weak hand. Traxum decided to keep it, and Future is showing that a little bit of stronger removal is going to be necessary to deal with that. Bonetide does get stronger the more cards buried, however. So with a few more cards that bury troops and troops in that crypt, Bonetide can turn the tide of a game pretty quickly.
All right, so let's take a look at opening hands for both players. Traxum with Double Blood, Single Sapphire Resource, Howling Madness, Bowtine, Swooping Gravitas, and Killblade of the Milky Eye. Future, on the other hand, Blood and Diamond Resource. We see the Threads of Life, the Arctic Grizzly, Nameless Host, isn't it the maggots? I can't remember at the top of my head.
It is a maggot swarm.
Maggot swarms. And yeah, so Hacky, what do you think about these hands?
We're definitely seeing a lot of cards. Since this is a pod draft, a tournament draft, all of the players are playing against each other, having drafted the same cards and seen them. So we are seeing players take cards and have them in their deck that others may want. And these are all great players. So we can expect that many of them likely know what cards to take from other people that are solid, no matter what deck they are. Traxum has Killblade of the Milky Eye now, 1/1 lethal, and that will go a lot. Will trade with any of the ground troops that Future may have, and make Future pause and think about whether to attack with them, like the Val Squirmhound. Madness. The Traxum's Berry doesn't seem to have as many direct ways to bury. Perhaps somebody else in this draft may have gone into a berry archetype deck, but with Threshold in hand already and a Killblade, it's still lacking a bit of board presence here. Swooping Gravitas being the only other troop, but from a starting hand, that seems to be acceptable. Future needs another resource, but again, with 3 drops and the early Maggot Swarm gets better if you're able to answer things, but otherwise can just be a 0/3 blocker, is pretty decent hand, with also Threads of Life able to bring one of them back in Fate Weave or something to happen. Future does need 1 more shard, but on the draw, that is more possible.
All right, let's go ahead and get in the action between Traxum and Future. Future up 1-0. Let's see what happens here between these players. Here we go. Resource play by Traxum. Killblade comes out turn 1. We see turn 1 Maggot Swarm for Future. Sapphire for Traxum. No swing. Passes the turn. Howling Madness at the end of Future's turn. Bury some cards. Get a card draw for Traxum. Swing for 1. Future takes it. Winter's Grasp going to take care of that Killblade, though.
Future deeming that Killblade a threat to all of the 3 drops in hand, so goes ahead and takes care of it.
Because that troop was voided, Maggot Swarm will not get the buff. Wow, Winter's Threads of Life bringing back that Blightbark Vampire for future.
With Traxxon to thanks to burying that, a little bit of reanimator action to bring that 4-drop out on turn 3.
Wow, Ferret is buried as a result of Nameless Host for Traxxon. Finds a Fall of Despair. We'll play that out. So we see some additional bury. Bone Tide. Going to take out that Blightbark Burster, but takes damage as well. Future at 24. Traxxon at 16. Bone Tide taking out the Blightbark Vampire. Here comes the swing for 4. Future now at 21. Back over to Future.
Future has a bit of bury as well, enabling that Maggot Swarm on troops that are pretty strong. Nameless Host, Nameless Citizen have a pretty decent stats.
Nameless Host burying that Vile Squirmhound and Culmination of Blood for Traxxon. So good hit there for Future. Future now at 5 resources, 3 cards in hand.
So the Despair is burying 2 cards per turn, though, so Future still has a bunch of turns to go, but it's not an infinite clock. But we're seeing much the same thing as the previous game. Future is going to be able to build a board with Ebon Horn and another Nameless Citizen in hand.
Future with the Nameless Host 3-4, Arctic Grizzly 3-5. Traxxon sitting here with just a 3-4 and a 3-3, so can block 1 and would lose another one in the process. Does block 1, goes to 12. Here comes that Brittle Ebonhorn, so life drain available for Future. Activation of that Champion Power finds a Primordial Grouk off the top, courtesy of Future saying, you can take 1, I don't want to bury.
But it's a rather good one. Some large flight troops and Future at 23. Those will start to get damage out. But will it be in time, or will Grouk be necessary to block things on the board?
Decides to swing with that Gravitas. Grouk locking down 2 troops. Traxxon putting Future with 12 cards left in his deck. We'll see a Dispel here.
Spell likely brought in, seeing fall into the Despair in the previous match and just wanting to deal with that threat. There's no more ongoing bury.
So Dispel targeting fall into Spare. Traxxon losing that bury mechanic. Runic Madness making him discard Mind Call. Traxxon finds a Sapphire Shard to join the 1 in hand. Gravitas swinging in. Future still at 20 health. Runic Madness discards the last card in Traxxon's hand. Bardic the Butcher finds a couple resources. Nameless Citizen joining Future's board, and it's getting pretty big here.
It's getting big, and Traxxon is at low enough health that something to turn the tide, like this Inner Fire. A full swing and reacting to the block can get a lot of damage through, either with a good trade or pushing enough damage.
Representing 15 damage here with this attack from Future. Traxxon at 12 with 3 blockers. We see the blocks here. Nameless Citizen forces the bury when it's blocked. And we'll see where Inner Fire is going to make its mark for Future.
Biggest troop in play is the Primordial Grouk. I expect it to be on that Nameless Citizen to take out the Grouk.
And it is indeed. So Grouk goes into the crypt. We see Fall of Despair for Traxxon, but he's at 6 health, facing off against 2 troops, forces the block, and now lethal next turn. Traxxon with just a Fever Bloom off the top, facing off against 2 troops and no way to interact. And this is going to go to Future as he takes down Traxxon 2-0.
Traxxon's very close. Traxxon has Future down to 5 cards in neck, but Barry has to either bury out, use that bury advantage for cards like Bone Tide, while being able to stem a strong troop game like Future has brought here.
Fever Bloom comes down, buries 2 cards, not enough. Here comes Lethal, and Future will take it down 2-0.
A strong curve from Future, a solid Blood and Diamond deck with a bit of berry flavor and And yeah, that will be a strong thing to take on. Traxxam did have some nice later game Sapphire fight in Primordial Grelk. The swooping Gravitas with control of the game is also evasive 3 damage a turn, but Future having the troops to survive that and push the damage to win.
So far, we've covered Etruria and Arcaz, with Arcaz advancing to the semifinals, and Traxxam and a Future, with Future taking it down 2-0 and advancing to the semifinals as well. Etruria and Traxxam still walking away with $250 US, so it's definitely winners today. Coming up and waking up and earning $250 isn't a bad thing. Our next matchup here is going to be Bottle Domes versus Sadistic. I do not have a player card for Bottle Domes, but let's talk a little bit about Sadistic before we go into this matchup. Sadistic, again, 29 years old, hails from Paris, France, one of the 3 members of Prismatic Conclave, has a CCS top 8, 5 Bash top 8s, 1 top 8 in the Plunder, and 2 top 8s in the 5 Shards weekly series, has a PhD in physical chemistry. He's played a lot of TCGs, but never competitively until today, and considers himself to be the most terrible cook on the planet. So Sadistic and Bottle Gnomes here going at it. Let's go ahead and get in on the action as we are in the quarterfinals. Bottle Gnomes playing Ixo the Primeval versus Sadistic as Adani Zedek. Opening hands for Bottle Gnomes, we see Blood Shard, double Wild Shard, Bug Out, Basic Wild Speaker, Blight Seed, Fiddler, and Nyctophobia. Over for Sadistic, we see double Diamond Shard, Ruby Shard, 2 Twilight Sentries, the Spectre, and I can't make out the Blood card next to the Sentry there.
Light bestowed and Sunlight Spectre.
Thank you. Hacky, what do you think about these hands?
It has Ixo the Primeval. It's a champion that harkens back to Zared Venomscorn, having a similar ability to give a troop minus attack, minus defense, removal on a stick, but requires a sacrifice of a troop. And because we see Bug Out, it seems that Bottle Gnomes has a bit of Deathcry in here, but a solid 2-3 and Blightseed Fiddler and Mesa Wildspeaker. Mesa Wildspeaker even creating, putting a Wild Shard from deck into hand. Bottle Gnomes will have resources, will want another blood for Nyctophobia, but can definitely do worse than this. You could even see the Bug Out on Blightseed Fiddler for double Deathcry. If there's some more Deathcry enablers in Bottle Gnomes' deck, that could be very powerful. Sadistic has double Twilight Sentries. They are gigantic, 5/5 for 4, but they require you to put a artifact or constant into your hand. With Verdict, it's often very likely that Sadistic may end up with a Nightfall or Daybreak somewhere to bring into hand, and that is likely what we're going to see here. Ability to use constants and Verdict is what Sadistic is looking for. Both players likely keeping, but Sadistic is in a little bit more need of something to enable those turn 4 plays. Otherwise, those just simply go back to hand themselves if Twilight Sentry is played on an empty board.
All right, let's get into the action here between Bottle Gnomes and Sadistic in the quarterfinals of Day 2 action of the CCS. Players trying to advance to the semis and earn that double up. Players here eliminated in round number 1 or the quarterfinals will walk away with $250. Still not bad. We see both players going into turn 1 resources. We see that Sunlight Spectre for Sadistic. Back over to Bottle Gnomes, finds a Monsagi Deadeye off the top, decides Blightseeder is the play.
Early Flight Troop, Blight Bestowed could go on it, a permanent +2 attack, and just be a threat Bottle Gnomes needs to answer. Would need to sacrifice that Monsagi Deadeye in order to answer it, but at least Bottle Gnomes has an ability to do that.
And that indeed is the play. Blight Bestowed onto that Sunlit Spectre, hit for 3. Bottle Gnomes now at 21. Sadistic takes the lead in health. We see a Thought Collector off top for Bottle Gnomes, but missing that double blood threshold.
Threshold is also necessary for that power and the Nyctophobias, so Bottle Gnomes is going to want that blood if possible.
Back over to Sadistic, instantly swings with that Sunlit Spectre, 3 damage. Battle Gnomes at 18. Vesper for Sadistic, back over to Battle Gnomes with his board. Blindseed Fiddler and Mesa Wildspeaker. Still missing that second blood. Double Nyctophobia in hand. Here comes the swing. Vesper will block. And we'll see a activation of that Fate Weave Mechanic Munsagi Deadeye for Battle Gnomes.
We've likely for a resource to try for that second blood. On the other side, still needs a constant at some point to be able to play those
Twilight Sentries.
Those monkeys. The Twilight Sentries.
Yeah. And Battle Gnome still missing out on that blood threshold. That Verdict with the champion power sacrificed the Munsagi Deadeye to put the -1/-1 onto that Sunlit Spectre. Wow. Merry Maple here for Battle Gnomes as we go back over to Sadistic.
Game changer for Battle Gnomes. It's going to turn a troop into a 6/6 Merry Squirrel at the start of every turn, and that's not something Sadistic can answer.
6/6 Merry Squirrel. Here comes that Blood Shard finally for Battle Gnomes. Champion Power online. Nyctophobia and Thought Collector also available. Here comes the swing. Chump block here. Sadistic at 18. Battle Gnomes taking a hit here, trying to do as much as possible. Another Sunlit Spectre for Sadistic. Start of the turn. Merry Squirrel is back. Here comes the Blood Shard. Here comes the swing. Block with the Initiative Whack. Sadistic at 12. Battle Gnome takes the lead here in health.
Has 2 Nyctophobias. They're now live. Any potential threats, blockers, and that our troops are going to be answered. Still no constant for those Twilight Sentries.
And Battle Gnomes will take game number 1, just waiting so patiently for that blood resource. And Sadistic trying to find a constant.
Those Twilight Watchers are a little hard to play without any direct way to get a cheap constant into play to enable them. They were dead cards in this game. But we do see that Sadistic has more than just that with the Spectres, the flight troops, is playing a lot of things that want those constants. Maybe there is more Verdict that Sadistic is holding. See them, the Twilight Sentries. Gnomes with some more Verdict will choose to give Sadistic a daybreak and enable that in the next game.
All right, so Sadistic down a game to Battle Gnomes, looking to force a game number 3. We'll take a look at opening hands here for both players. Sadistic here with Double Diamond Shard, a Portal Shard, Shard of Retribution, Cruel Sentence, Twilight Sentry, and that Sunrise Spectre. For Battle Gnomes, we see a Blood Shard, Shard of the Ancients, a Wild Ice, Blightseed Fiddler, looks like the Nyctophobia, and the Lily, and the Undead Plant Troop. I can't remember off the top of my head. Hacky, help me out here. Herald of Roses, thank you.
Sadistic has a little bit similar hand. Only 1 Twilight Sentry this time, but with Cruel Sentence for an additional Verdict that will draw a card as well. Sadistic has a better chance of ending up with a constant in play. Sunrise Spectre can get a couple of points of health back with the turn 1 Sunrise Spectre, turn 2 Cruel Sentence, though the Shard of Retribution is a depleted shard. Maybe that's not possible, but at least Sadistic has some Verdict to go with, as well as the backup plan. The Rift Core can be discarded for an uncommon portal. That could be anything in any uncommon in Standard eventually. So on the other side, Battle Gnome's solid resource base with a Fate Weave, Wild Ice, and Corpse Lily, and that both Corpse Lily and Blightseed Fiddler turn 2 plays that are super solid in Blood and Wild, as well as Herald of Roses, giving undead life drain. The Corpse Lily is not an undead, but the zombie Deathcry creates is, and Blightseed Fiddler is an undead plant zombie. So if they are still on the board, and there's likely a lot of this in Blood and Wild, that Herald of Roses, life drain itself as well, can swing health greatly in Battle Gnomes' favor.
All right, let's get in the action here between both players. Quarterfinals of the CCS Day 2. As a reminder, as you see those Runier Hierophant sleeves, your days are getting numbered for your chance to get those sleeves out of the draft format. As a reminder, those sleeves will go away when Doombringer is launched. So if you're looking to get those sleeves, you need to get into the draft and get those wins as quickly as possible. Sadistic with that turn 1 Sunrise Spectre. Turn comes back to him after Bottlenose playing a resource. Cruel Sentence will verdict. Draw card. Gets a Daybreak, courtesy of Bottlenose. Sunrise Spectre will tick up, do 2 points of damage. Blight.
Sadistic in the last game had early flight and was able to buff it, and it seems to be similar this time. Bottlegnomes was able to grab removal to take care of these, and Ixos power definitely helps, but no Monsagi Deadeye so far, and the Sunrise Specters will probably get in a bunch of damage a little bit at a time before the later game.
So Sadistic finding a Sunrise Spectre off the top. Daybreak gaining him a health per turn. Swing for 1. Bottlegnomes at 21. Shard of Retribution comes down. Blood Threshold. Initiate Wax. Back over to Bottlegnomes. Fiddler coming in. Swing. Trades. And a Jubilant Jouster for Bottlegnomes. Back to Sadistic. Finds a resource.
Jouster can grow to ridiculous proportions when played early enough in a matchup with momentum.
Bottlegnomes going to 20 after that hit. Twilight Sentry puts Daybreak back in hand. Corpse
finally gets a constant to enable that Twilight Sentry. Here it is.
Corpse Lily joins Jubilant Jouster. Champion power used there on the Corpse Lily. Gloaming Edict for Sadistic off the top. Gloaming
1+1 and playing a spirit will force a verdict. We can see that Sadistic has a bunch of spirits in the deck, and one of the reasons for this right there.
Jubilant Jouster after resources now a 4/4 for Bottlegnomes. Swing for 6. Sadistic at 22, gaining 2 a turn here. Activation of that portal's ability finds a Ghastly Exchange. Nyctophobia, activation of champion power. Twilight Sentry in now. The Crypt, back over to Bottlegnomes. Swing for 7. Sadistic at 18, but still in lead in health. That is a Seamstress.
Is a Seamstress. Fate Weaving gives you various powers, as well as it being a 3/4 flight for 4 itself. But Bottlegnomes has a second Nyctophobia for the second time in this game, so that Seamstress as a 3/4 flight's probably that bigger target than the 2/2 flight Sentry. Bottlegnomes is running low on health, but is building a board.
Bottlegnomes here. Merry Maple Maker in hand. Nyctophobia going to target that Seamstress. Swing here for 5. Sadistic takes the hit, but gains 2 more. Now at 17 health, thanks to those Daybreaks.
Bottlegnomes is actually going to lose this race. The Daybreaks gaining 1 health per turn for Sadistic, 2 of them total. And Bottlegnomes is facing a bunch of flight in the air.
Robogoyle for Sadistic puts 3 cards back into the deck. Merry Maple down on the field. Overwhelming Guilt, the top deck draw for Sadistic with Blights bestowed and a Blood Shard in hand.
Have hit a lot of good targets, but the evasive threats aren't ending for Sadistic.
Sadistic probably calculating the damage here for the next turn. Blight bestowed 7. Nope, decides to keep the Sunrise Spectre down. So Bottlegnomes at 3. Here comes a swing from Bottlegnomes, putting Sadistic at 6. Does have a flyer in the air, but Winter's Grass off the top to take care of the flyer, and Sadistic will tie this up 1-1.
A very fortunate draw for Sadistic there. The Thought Collector was a flight troop that would have blocked the Robogoyle, the 5-attack Robogoyle, and potentially only 2 damage would have been available, leaving Bottle Gnomes at 1, but that Winter's Grass ended that plan. No flight blocker, and Sadistic is able to even this match.
Timely top decks. When Kismet is smiling upon you, you have to appreciate those moments.
The power of removal in limited. Oftentimes, the strength of your deck is how well you can answer your opponent's best threats, leaving yours free to swing.
We'll bring you game 3 here between Bottle Gnomes and Sadistic. And here we go. Winner of this will move on to the semis. The non-winner will still walk away with $250. Opening hands here for Bottle Gnomes, we see Blood Shard, triple Wild Shard, Bug Out, Pack Pummeler, and Blightseed Fiddler. Over for Sadistic, we see double Diamond, double Blood Shard. That's Sunlit Spectre, Initiate of Wax, and the other Blood Troop.
The Night Warden.
Night Warden, thank you. Hacky, what do you think?
All right, Bottle Gnomes has a similar hand to game number 1. Bug Out and a Blightseed Fiddler. A strong play that Fate Weave Deathcry from Blightseed Fiddler. By the time it dies, Bottle Gnomes knows what to Fate Weave for and can likely, in this situation, get a non-resource. Being a Deathcry 3/3 Cadaver Beetle. And paired with Ixo's power, can trigger that at any time. Is great of Crush Gladiator 2, that is 4/2 on attack, 2/4 on defense, and Fate Weaves when it damages a champion. So Bottle Gnomes can shape that deck with a bunch of Fate Weave, a great starting hand. Sadistic, having has shown some of the other troops in the deck in the previous game, has an early Sunrise Spectre and can follow it up by with Initiative Wax, leaving some blockers up to hit some of these earlier troops that Bottle Gnomes will put out. No extra verdict and no way to buff the spirits anyway, but we know those are in the deck now with Gloaming Edict and other cards. But Sadistic likely keeping this hand as well. Both players will definitely want to draw into things in the future.
All right, let's get on the action here. Both players looking to advance to the semis. Let's find out who does. We'll get into our standard turn 1 resource play from both players. Sunlit Spectre for Sadistic turn 1. And we'll see Blightseed Fiddler, Bottle Gnomes turn 2 play. Initiate a Wax here for Sadistic.
A lot of resource. Both players have a lot of resources, but Bottle Gnomes, we know, has a bunch of Fate Weave possible, so can control and prevent drawing more resources than necessary. Sadistic still at the mercy of that deck, having 6 total resources at the moment.
Bottle Gnomes here.
At least. Yeah. That going to be a play eventually.
We'll see Pack Pummeler here for Bottle Gnomes. Turn passes back over. Initiative Whack activates, creates a Candlekin. Sunlit Spectre number 2 for Sadistic. Back over to Bottle Gnomes. We see a green Grimpookin.
It's Sadistic, getting those Sunrise Spectres out early. They are going to be consistent damage. Bottle Gnomes has limited ability to deal with them without removal, and some of the bigger removals like Nyctophobia, if he gets it, may not be used on those Sunrise Spectres, but on bigger threats.
So decision point here for Bottle Gnomes.
Doesn't really have something that he wants to sacrifice. Both Pack Pummeler and Blightseed Fiddler are great. He could bug out one of them and attack. Pack Pummeler could be a good attack if the opponent wants to double block. Troops are big enough that any block from Sadistic will result in at least a trade.
Green Grimpookin. We do see that bug out on the Pack Pummeler. Here comes the swing.
On Pack Pummeler is going to mean no damage is dealt to the opponent.
That Cadaver Beetle created as a result of the bug out.
No, Green Grimplekin gives a random troop you control +1/+1 whenever you Fate Weave.
Blood Shard now here for sadistic activation of champion power. Bottle Gnomes will have to make a decision. Gives troop. Oh, he discarded that Muttmaster. Oof.
To discard a random card with only 2 cards in hand, that means the other verdict choice must have been something that Bottlums did not want to face.
Bottle Gnomes does connect with that swing. Takes the lead in health, 21-20. Thought Collector coming down. Sacrifice finds a Cruel Sentence off the top of Sadistic's deck. Cruel Sentence, Verdicts, and we see a Grounds Creeper off the draw. Here comes a swing for 5. Sadistic at 14. Grounds Creeper down on the field.
One of the reasons for all the Death Cry, Groundskeeper, a great reason for it. Will trigger a Death Cry every turn. No Death Cries at the moment for Bottle Gnomes, but future troops that can trigger and trigger.
Wow, Nyctophobia off the top here for Bottle Gnomes.
That Night Warden is a big blocker for Sadistic, and
does indeed take out that Night Warden. Sadistic now at 7.
Dealing some extra damage to the opponent with Nyctophobia if you control a constant.
Wow, and that will do it. So Bottle Gnomes will take down Sadistic 2-1.
The Wild Blood Death Cry, a good suite of troops that gain continuous advantage, and the Fate Weave, a solid deck from Bottle Gnomes.
So the 4 players making it to the semis are future Bottle Gnomes, Ruikthar, and Arca.
Wait. One more. We haven't seen the last one.
My bad.
All right. I have done this as well. All right, we're ready for the semis. Wait a minute. What's this match I haven't seen so far?
All right, so we got Ruikthar versus Hayukame here in the quarterfinals. We'll go ahead and bring you that. All right, here we go. Getting those games downloaded. After round 1, after the quarterfinals, we'll have a new spoiler for you guys for Doombringer. All right, so this is going to be a matchup between Ruikthar and Hayukame. Ruikthar playing Adani Zedek, so another Adani Zedek player here against Foriko Hayukame here. We'll go and take a look at opening hands for both players. Ruikthar with double diamond resource, sapphire resource, Dingle Dance, Bleeding Heart, Ebonhorn, and a Lux Guard for Hayukame. Playing Foriko, see Tri-Shard, see Ruby Shard, double Wild Shard, a Sapphire Shard. We see Swooping Gravitas. We see the
Volcanic Portal. And
there you go. And Candle Crush. Thank you. Hacky, what do you think?
Right. Hyakume's hand is super colorful. I'm not sure what happened here. Ruby, Sapphire, and Wild Portal? It might be just a bunch of portal cards. There are 2. There are a bunch of portal cards. They do give advantage, but we'll need some solid troops to really make that a thing. Furico being a neutral power, taking all the troops you have in play, giving it +2/+2, but that's a lot of charges away, 8 charges. So this hand with Candle Crush and a lot of expensive cards is probably going to be a redraw. Hopefully Hyakume has some earlier things in this Tri-Shard to do it. It may even be just a splash, but we will see. Ruikthar on the other side, Adoni Zedek more to power a Sapphire Wild deck, a Sapphire Diamond deck rather than a pure Verdict with Blood. the elementals. We might see Flight. We see Luxguard, Ebonhorn be played a little bit earlier. But besides this Dingle Dance, Ruikthar also not many early plays. And an interesting thing that might influence Ruikthar's decision to mulligan, the opponent is Furico. This is game one with no knowledge of what Furico is playing, may expect ramp or a bunch of early wild troops. So Ruikthar might actually redraw on wanting some earlier plays.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the action here. Quarterfinals of day 2 coverage of the CCS. Both players looking to advance to the semis. So let's get in on the action.
Hand, it only needs one more resource in order to play Ebonhorn as Frostform and that Luxguard.
So we're seeing standard resource play here for both players. Back over to Ruikthar. Runic Justice off the top, so a turn 2 play. Runic Justice will go ahead and play. Verdict.
Command is drawn into an Acolyte of Flame, which might reveal a little bit of this deck's composition. It may be Elementals in Ruby and Sapphire, with that Candle Crush suggesting wanting to have a bunch of troops in play.
So Hyukame here with that wild resource will play the Acolyte of Flame. Turn passes back to Ruikthar. Cocoonmancer off the top for Ruikthar.
That's an extremely strong bomb that turns your troops into merry butterflies for the turn, and when that hits play, it is going to be quite the card to handle.
Second Sapphire for Hyukame off the top. We'll play a Sapphire. Turn passes back over after that swing. Activation of Champion Power. We see a Daybreak. Here comes Luxguard, so another Verdict that Hyukame will have to decide what to do here. And a Nightfall is selected, so dealing 1, gaining 1 a turn for Ruikthar. That is another Volcanic Portal.
They are 5 damage to a troop while making a common portal, and Hyakame is almost able to play it and will be able to deal with some of the bigger troops, but it is just not big enough for Kakunamancer, though.
Runic Justice is triggered for Ruikthar with that resource draw. Double Daybreak, single Nightfall, gaining 2, dealing 1 a turn. Turn passes back over, missing that double Sapphire for the Bleeding Heart. Decision point here for Hyakame. Going into attack.
Ruikthar has 5 resources open.
That means there could always be a Sunlit Sentence hiding, possibly.
Exactly. But then again, and that Sunlit Sentence is important as Hyakame is Furico, and any advantage that you can get destroying Furico's troops before that Charge Devour is important. So Hyakame might be going over whether to risk this attack. Then again, not too much is following up this board. If it dies, a 6th resource means Swooping Gravitas will start to portal.
Decision point with 5 open resources against a diamond player. Hyakame has to decide whether swinging in for 4 is going to be worth it or not. Swings with 2, does 3. Swooping Gravitas comes down. Back to Ruikthar, finds a resource now at 6, especially that double Sapphire available. And we see Cocoonmancer.
Draws Merry Mascot, and with a board, that's another thing you can do with a lot of troops out. Transform them all into random things.
Merry Mascot is a good pickup. Needs to get to 7. We see Runic Riddles here for Hyakame. We'll play out a wild resource now at 6. Merrymaker down. Swooping Gravitas swings in for 3.
2 Daybreaks. These 3 damage attacks really need to be a little bit more. Ruikthar is healing most of that back.
Woolly Moa off the top for Ruikthar. Here comes the swing for 6. Hyakime at 14. Ebonhorn comes down. Runic Riddles triggered after that resource draw. So again, decision point here. Has not played a resource yet. Furiko's charge power is 8, not 7. Resource.
And it can enable the charge power if Hyakime decides to go in that direction. Or Hyakime could kill the Ebonhorn. The Kakunomancer is going to represent the ability to make 4/4 flights. Other troops can make itself. It can make itself a oh. But Hyakime still has 14 health. Still has a few hits that he could take.
Volcanic Portal taking out that Ebonhorn. Hyakime left with 1 resource. Decides if they want to swing or not with that swooping gravitas, or with everything. Is going to take 6 back of the swing unless they leave a backup blocker to chump. Also taking 1 damage from Nightfall. Does a full swing. So a big hit there, but Ruokthar getting 2 back with that Daybreak. Wolimoa allows the Fate Weave. No swing. Back over to Hyakime.
Needs to keep those blockers up. And we'll hold up the 2 Dingle Dances that have been in hand for a while. Those will revert and transform troops into Dinglers, effectively removing any Furico buffs or transforms from Merry Mascot.
So Hyakime here with the charge power available. Eight resources.
Any more troops in hand to benefit from Furico's power. The portals have made actions at the moment.
Volcanic Portal. Going to target. So Wolimoa is the target. Charge power swing here for Hyakime. 19 damage inbound.
Mancer can jump in front of a blocker. The Dingle Dances can also. But is there a combination where Ruokthar is going to win?
Nope. Not going to happen. And Hyakime will take game number 1. So interesting matchup there between both these players. Players will go into reserves. We'll look at game number 2. All right, looks like game 2 is loaded up here. Oh.
Almost.
We'll get that readjusted. 1 second. All right, here we go. Back into the action here. Hyakime up 1-0 on Ruokthar. Take a look at opening hands here for both players. Ruokthar with double Sapphire Shard, Verdict of the Ancient Kings, Kakunomancer, Swooping Gravitas, Wolimoa, and Aquamander. Over for Hyakime, we see a Sapphire Shard, Wild Shard, Pomegranate, Blight Bush, Runic Riddles, the Resource, and the... I do not remember the Ruby card off the top of my head, Hacky.
Runic Eruption.
Runic Eruption, thank you. Hacky, let us know what you think about the hands.
Ruokthar having no diamond, but no diamond cards in hand. Wolimoa it can be frost formed for a 2-cost Fate Weave. So Ruokthar likely keeping this. Aquamander and Wolimoa, some plays guaranteeing a resource, and a Verdict of the Ancient Kings in hand. Hyakime did play a bunch of actions, and Ruokthar, considering Verdict, might be useful in this matchup. Hyakime has a couple of resources. Missing Ruby. The Runic Eruption, I believe, is double Ruby, so a little bit from there. Just seems to be good cards in both shards, good troops that make more troops like this Blight Bush and the Acolyte of Flame earlier. And then Furico's power, when it gets there, makes them all big. It did feel like the Hyakime off the back of Runic Eruptions, where it was able to get some late game removal, but if Ruikthar has a faster hand, Hyakime may or may not have the board to stop it. But that Blight Bush is a great card to have, and Palm of Granite means Hyakime will ramp up, get additional resources, and get closer to that Furico charge power.
All right, let's get in the action here. Ruikthar versus Hyakime in the quarterfinals of CCS Action Day number 2. Standard resource play here for both players. Turn 1. Aquamander here for Ruikthar. And a Blight Bush for Hyakime turn 2. Back over to Ruikthar. We see Brittle Woolly Moa, which is considered an elemental, which creates an Aquamander for Ruikthar.
Aquamander. The extra Aquamander won't have that one shot as it copies it with the power used up, but extra troops always welcome.
Libations for Hyakime. We'll see that Mesa Wild Speaker get a wild shard from the deck. Attack phase for Hyakime, wants to see, not sure if he's going to swing in here. Will swing, block with the Aquamander, and we'll create those Blight Bush.
There's already done its job. There's bigger troops in the future. Might as well let that trade happen.
Nightfall as a result of the champion power. And another Woolly Moa, will Fate Weave. Turn passes back to Hyakime. Wild Shard. 1 Sapphire threshold, 3 wild, missing the Ruby thresholds. Here comes a full swing.
Nuts in Hyakume's hand that he may be trying to use.
We see the block here. Go Nuts turning into a Merry Squirrel. Going to take out that Woolly Moa, but double Fate Weave here for Ruikthar. Swooping Gravitas creates a Magnetize in hand for Ruikthar. Turn passes back to Hyakime. Still missing out on that Ruby threshold.
Time to draw them, but for now, Hyakume's got a solid board going.
Back over to Ruikthar. That Nightfall doing 1 damage a turn. Swooping Gravitas. Flight Troop in air. That Magnetize turns to Bring to Justice. Aquamander comes in.
Portal is exactly what you need.
Hyakime here. Missing the Ruby. Has Ruby cards in hand. Can't do anything with them. We'll play the Pomegranate. Player Wild Resource. Put 1 in hand. Sapphire comes down. 2 charges away from champion power. Turn to the attack phase. 2-1 Aquamander a face. So we go ahead and swing in. 2 damage. Ruikthar down to 20. Swing back. Hyakime down to 12. Cocoonmancer for Ruikthar. Runic Riddles triggers for Hyakime. And now we see a Merry Squirrel swinging in. Health totals just trading back and forth. Luxguard off the top here for Ruikthar.
A pretty sweet play from Hyakime using Poppy Pixie to transform the Merry Squirrel, transform something to a Merry Squirrel, and then using the drop of Whimsy from earlier to transform it into a +1 cost thing, so it no longer will revert from that Flufftail Cloud Killer.
7/7 Skyguard troop isn't too bad, especially when your opponent has some flight troops. Luxguard joining Swooping Gravitas in the air for Ruikthar.
Ruikthar still has that Verdict of the Ancient Kings from earlier in the game, and there's only actions remaining in Hyakume's hand.
Ruby Shard gets Hyakime to 8 which means champion power activates. That's a 9/9 Skyguard Fluffy Tail Cloud Killer, along with the rest of the troops on the board. We'll see what Ruikthar is going to have to face off against from this attack from Hyakame.
Hyakame can't just make an attack out of nowhere, though. The Kunomancer is threatening getting a bunch of flight troops in the air. There are already flight for Ruikthar, but even bigger ones that Aquamander can transform into a Merry Butterfly. And there's only one flight blocker. Falls will continue to tick down. Hyakame is going to feel pressure on that health.
Here comes the full swing. Both barrels coming at him. Ruikthar now here with a decision point.
Hyakame can play Volcanic Portal and the quick thing.
Razor's Edge?
But one of those can be stopped by Verdict, unbeknownst to Hyakame. See, the Dingle Dance is in the previous game as well. So Hyakame kind of attacking in blind into this final card.
We see the blocks here. Aquamander, Kakunamancer.
I think Hyakame is planning to use Volcanic Portal.
Hyakame at 6. No blockers in the air. Kakunamancer on the ground. So that's 12 damage.
There actually isn't an answer to this. Hyakame didn't leave a blocker, didn't have an opportunity to make Urikthar use that Verdict of the Ancient Kings. And I guess we are on Volcanic Portal into creating something quick and an answer.
So Hyakame completely open to attack open resources. Ruikthar with more than lethal on board. Verdict of the Ancient Kings. We see an emulate there. No swing? No swing for lethal.
It might be that Urikthar is really curious about this deck and wants more info. The Nightfalls will win eventually, but it's also a little bit dangerous to do this.
I don't know what just happened here. Had lethal, decided not to swing.
A lot of resources open for Hyakame, even though with that Verdict of the Ancient Kings protecting.
I don't know. It'll be interesting here. Here we come, a swing with a 3/5/4/4 troop into Ruikthar at 7 health.
Could have been a misclick on Ruikthar's side.
We see the blocks. One favorable block for Ruikthar. Kakunamancer going to go and transform Razor's Edge. We'll see if Verdict of the Ancient King is going to be used here against Razor's Edge. Does not. Decides to keep it. So 1-for-1 trade. Here comes that Iron Maw going to take out the Lux Guard. Kakunamancer going to transform itself into a butterfly. We see the block taking out the Iron Maw. Resource play. Verdict of the Ancient King still available. Here comes that Verdict. Ruikthar.
Second Ruby.
Yeah, the second Ruby is necessary. Yep.
Volcanic Portals can't be used. The option can't be used. So that removal, all dead.
So tying it up, very interesting play there by Ruikthar, but still gets the job done. And both players will go into game number 3.
We'll just chalk it up to misclick. It didn't. Ruikthar still able to go about it, get that win.
Still won. Still won. Still won. All right, here we go. Game number 3 between both these players. Hyakame on the bottom playing for Rico. Opening hand is Ruby Shard, Triple Wild Shard, Runic Riddles, Kakunamancer again, and Mesa Wildspeaker. For Ruikthar, we see Quad Sapphire Shards, Diamond Shards, Initiative Wax, and a Verdict of the Ancient Kings. Hacky, what do you think about these hands?
Yakume showing the dangers of playing a Trishard deck in that previous game and now in this one. Kakunamancer, powerful card, but those double thresholds really want the correct thresholds. Sometimes you draw into it, and sometimes you are missing your key threshold, like the double ruby in the previous one. But Mesa Wildspeaker, creating resources, Furico, a slower hand for Hyakume, needs a Sapphire at some point, but likely one to keep. In Trishard, if you've got 2 of your 3 thresholds, that's probably good enough. In Ruikthar's hand, for days, has threshold, but really just an initiative wax and a verdict of the Ancient Kings. Is that good enough for Ruikthar? I think that may be a mulligan for Ruikthar to try to get something more substantial than just that.
All right, let's see what Ruikthar wants to do, if he'll keep or mulligan, and get in the action here between both these players, tied 1-1.
Ruikthar is going to keep the hand and hope to draw into things that'll use it, but Ruikthar does play a lot of higher cost threats, so that may be part of that decision.
Twin-tail Scroll Titan for Hyakume. We hadn't seen that yet. Off the top.
Romancer of Hyakume's own as well.
Light Bush for Hyakume. Off the top, we see Mesa Wildspeaker looking to get those resources. Back over to Ruikthar. Second Diamond Sapphire Threshold, Initiate Wax. Gonna go ahead and trade that Candlekin Woolly Moa, or Brittle Woolly Moa. Gonna go ahead and trade with that Mesa Wildspeaker. Back to Hyakume. Light Bush comes down. Ruikthar with the activation of Champion Power, so Verdict inbound.
With that Wild Knight draw, he would probably want to try to get the Blight Bush to die and use its power before playing the Wild Knight. It must transform another card.
Poppy Pixie is the transformation. Back over to Ruikthar. Runic Justice will Verdict, then turn into a Mysterious Rune. +1/+1 to Ruikthar's troops. Back over to Hyakume. Plays a Sapphire Shard. Here comes that Twin-tail Squirrel Titan. Temporal Exile, though, is going to put it back into his hand.
He wants to delay that. That's Twin-tail Squirrel Titan is a bomb, transforming another troop when it attacks into a 6 cost.
That resource for Ruikthar off the top will trigger Runic Justice, will Verdict.
Tempo, though, for Ruikthar, as that is 6 resources spent for Hyakume.
We'll see that Kakunamancer join the rest of Ruikthar's troops. His turn passes over to Hyakume.
There's a couple of options here, getting Bluebell Dryad Merry Mascot out, but with the Ruikthar's Kakunamancer out yet again, and no Skyguard or other flight blocker for Hyakume, no second Sapphire to play Kakunamancer, I think it is just going to be Squirrel Titan once again.
Decision point here. 2 charges away from Champion Power. Twin-tail Squirrel Titan does indeed join the field. Turn passes back to Ruikthar.
Still has Verdict in hand, can play the Borean Chimera. And moves at the boons at the start of turn.
Plays the Brittle Chimera. Turn passes back to Hyakume. Bluebell Dryad. Decision point here with that Twin-tail Squirrel Titan.
Has picked up a pummel as well.
Ooh, and look at this transformation. Ripple of Django here, swinging in.
Ripple of Django reverts. It will turn back into a Blight Blossom. Rather.
Both players' health totals equal here with this swing. 11 damage inbound.
Likely planning to use this pummel. Ruikthar has Verdict of the Ancient Kings to stop it, but what really trade is there for besides multiple things for one of these troops?
Decides to take the hit, goes to 12.
Likely Ruikthar is planning to Cocoonmancer the Beetleborian Chimera and turn it into full Chimera.
Interesting that both these players have a Cocoonmancer.
With this hand, Hyakume's deck makes more sense. It is Wild and Sapphire transform with Ruby for the removal.
Now at 8 resources here for Ruikthar.
Emulate can take care of that Twin-Tail Squirrel Titan threat for Arctic Emu. But really, the Cocoonmancer and Borean Chimera are the cards to look at. Those are Ruikthar's power cards.
Activation of Champion Power will Verdict. Hyakume will have to make a decision here. Creates a Phantom for Ruikthar.
Dangerous to choose to give Ruikthar a Phantom, given that the Cocoonmancer is in play, but the Cocoonmancer needs 3 resources to turn something into a Merry Butterfly, so there's not infinite ways for that to happen.
Emulate here is going to target one of Hyakume's troops. That Twin-Tail Squirrel Titan is now an Arctic Emu. Brittle Woolly Moa. Turn passes back over to Hyakume. Troops ready. Blight Bush is restored to its natural form.
Charge power is ready in Hyakume's hand.
Ruikthar with 4 open resources, Verdict of the Ancient Kings, and Orchikero in hand. Decides to use a charge power before playing any troops, so troops on the board now have +2/+2 for Hyakume.
Planning to use the Merry Mascot 7 cost power. However, so it is too late for that. So likely planning to make use of the pummel and the runic riddles.
Here comes the swing with everything except for the Arctic Emu. 20 damage inbound.
Big Ruikthar does at least have Verdict once again for this pummel. Let this attack go like the last one. The last one may have had not as many great block choices, but now Ruikthar really does need to do this combat math. And Chimera can make trades here or block really well. Honestly, with that Verdict, this is probably going to end really well for Ruikthar.
All right, so we see the blocks here. Only 4 damage making it to Ruikthar as it stands right now. Hyakume trying to consider where Pummel's going to go. Does indeed cast Pummel. On to the Merry Mascot. which is being blocked by the Kakunamancer. Will Ruikthar let this go through? Or will he save the verdict? Nope. Verdict's going to go ahead and stop that. And damage is going to be assessed. Mary Mascot will go into the crypt as well. Runic Riddles finds a pomegranate. Turn passes back to Ruikthar.
I think you can let that pummel go. It turns a fight you're winning to a fight you're losing.
Of note, that Borean Chimera now has Rage and a Lethal. Here comes a swing with that and the Kakunamancer. 12 damage inbound. See the block against the Kakunamancer.
Attack with Ruikthar can't attack with everything. There's still that swing back potential. Those troops are still large.
See a Hellhawk here. Hyakime with that pomegranate triggers Runic Riddles. Finds a ruby resource.
Riddles. To play Kakunamancer here. Still, Hyakime has gotten through this game with a lot of health, and Kakunamancer, but it might need to do things like trade with the opponent's Kakunamancer or the Borean Chimera. But doing that leaves so many troops, the Hailhawk now from the runic hatching and flight threats.
And Hyakime does not have anything to stop anything in the air.
On the Kakunamancer can, but that means reverting the +2/+2 off the other troops.
Attack phase here.
Yuriko can attack here. It will be blocked, and the swing back is going to be incredible.
We do see a swing here for 4. That seems bold.
That's probably a decent attack for Hyakime. Whatever Ruikthar blocks with will be traded.
All right, so Kakunamancer joins the field for Hyakime, turns back to Ruikthar at 8 health, but a sizable board here. Aquamander off the top. The Borean Chimera now has speed and spell shield.
Kakunamancer can send 2 troops over Hyakume's board with Kakunamancer with to the Hailhawk and the Phantom. Want to do it with anything else, could buff the Phantom up to a 4/4, so that's going to be in the air 10 damage. It's only going to take a couple of turns for Ruikthar to win on this board state. Hyakime doesn't have anything open this turn to block it. Won't die this turn, but at the very least, the Blight Bush dying gives some additional troops that can be turned into flies on the next turn. But still, board mounting for Ruikthar could just send in some damage, boring another flight troop to get some extra damage on Hyakime. If Ruikthar doesn't do damage, then Hyakime can do the exact same thing, turn all these troops into merry butterflies and attack, and Ruikthar still is only at 8. So a bit of tension and trying to find the correct line to get through.
Again, both players looking to advance to the semis. $250 on the line, as players who advance to the semis are guaranteed at least $500. So players taking their time to make their decisions, because one decision can turn into victory or defeat. Decides not to do anything, passes the turn. We see Pomegranate here for Hyakime. Plays out a resource and still has 2 wild resources in hand.
I think we're seeing a game of Kakunomancer Chicken in action.
Again, Hyakame with 17 health, Ruikthar at 8. Ruikthar can't activate Kakunomancer on his side. We see Merry Butterfly, number 1. Onto the Blight Blossom.
This board, even though Hyakume's gotten a bunch of resources, this is set up for a future turn. With these, really, it is Kakunomancer Chicken, because whoever, as long as both players keep resources up and have troops, they can Merry Butterfly to block each other's Merry Butterflies. And then the other side might swing back. But Rookthar has the advantage of more troops and more natural flight, can stop Hyakume attacking and swing back.
Decisions here are critical. Here we go, attack phase. No swing. Activation here turns that to Mirror Butterfly. Initiative Wax is reverted, which means he can start creating Candlekin.
If Rookthar is going to try to make an overwhelming board, Kakunomancer can revert both Aquamancer and Initiative Wax. And doing that every turn will just build a board greater than Hyakume can build. And eventually, Rookthar is going to have enough troops to attack and win. As long as Kakunomancer keeps resources open until the end of the turn to be able to react if Hyakume does decide to attack, I think Rookthar this out, especially given the extra Hellhawk that has just happened. And Rookthar also has Live Ant Skylancers in hand as well.
That Borean Chimera with Swift Strike and Life Drain as well this turn. Remember, those boons changed at the start of Ruikthar's turn.
And that's going to be important. Whatever blocks that, Rookthar is going to get a very important 6 health boost going up to 14. Because the part of the problem with Rookthar was that low health and the potential to get backswinged. But this will reduce that potential greatly.
So here comes the swing. Swift Strike, Life Drain. Good boons here for that troop for Ruikthar, that Borean Chimera. 2-2 in the air. We'll see the block with the Merry Butterfly. We'll see the trade here as the Kakunomancer transforms into the troop into a Merry Butterfly. Live Eye Skylancers creates those Candlekin. Activation of Initiative Wax. Now we have 3 Candlekin. Resources abundant for Hyakume. Not exactly what they were looking for, I'm sure.
But at the very least, this Ludicrous Libations will enable some drop of Whimsy play. That Blight Blossom can be turned into a 6 cost.
All right, so troop turning into a Merry Butterfly. Wow, transformation there. With that drop of Whimsy. 8-8 Crush inbound to Ruikthar. Hyakume, though, with 11 health and a sizable troop count on the other side.
It's actually a great hit for Hyakume if this Blight Bush dies. It does have Crush, but Rookthar can now take this attack, and leaving this unblocked means that this entire board of Rookthar can swing in, and Hyakume down to 11. There's as much damage as possible without killing the Blight Bush, may be it.
So Blight Bramble is triple blocked here, stays alive. Troops are sent into the crypt. Ruikthar at 12. Overwhelming guilt for Ruikthar.
Ruikthar can simply turn things into butterflies and attack.
Spell Shield and a Life Drain for that Borean Chimera. We see troops turning into butterflies, full swing, blocks, but it's not enough, and Ruickthar will advance to the semifinals.
Many resources. Not finding the ruby removal that game was a long one, but that is going to result in Ruickthar advancing to the semifinals.
So future Bottle Gnomes, Ruickthar, and Arcaz into the semis in the Cosmic Crown Showdown Day 2 action. All four of those players are guaranteed at least $500 as they work their way to the finals match. While we get ready, we do have another spoiler for you guys, Doombringer spoiler. Let's go ahead and bring that up onto the screen. All right, so we already spoiled the Totem of Voidstar for those of you who were not here for the stream. We spoiled this at the beginning. 2-cost single blood, single sapphire, 2/2. Chaos Touch Totem, you can pay 1 discard a card. This gets flight and lethal this turn. When this deals damage to a champion, put target card discarded this way from a crypt into your hand. So that was spoiled earlier. Now let's take a look at our new spoiler for the stream. And this is the Iron Inquisitor. 2 costs, a single ruby, 2/2. When a champion discards a card, if opposing champion have 3 or few cards in hand, summon a Candlegast. And a Candlegast here is a 3-cost single ruby 4/4. This has -1/-1 in all zones for each card in opposing hands. Hacky, what do you think about the Iron Inquisitor?
That is an angry candle.
It's super angry.
The Iron Inquisitor seems to be a turned luminary, and the turned luminary creating Candlegast, apparently from the blood and fat of the victims. But this is the new flavor of the turned luminaries, still doing things with candles, and wanting opponents to discard when any champion discard a card. Actually, on Iron Inquisitor, so with that Totem of Voidstar,
yeah, good combo with that.
Reduce your opponent's hand, and those Candlegast. So if an opposing champions have 3 or fewer cards, you summon a Candlegast, which means the Candlegast. And it's -1/-1 in all zones for each card in opposing hands. So it dies if your opponent has hope, which means 4 cards in hand. But as your opponent has less hope, that seems to be the flavor of this Candlegast. If your opponent has no cards in hand, they go crazy.
Yeah, I like the artwork on this too. It is like the supreme evil candle, just looking all evil and ready to destroy things. And yeah, I like this card a lot. I like the Iron Inquisitor. Love the artwork. I know we talked about this yesterday, but man, I love this artwork. So what do you guys think in chat? Are you guys excited about Doombringer? What do you think about the Iron Inquisitor and Candlegast? 2 new spoilers coming up. Remember, Doombringer is going to be launching sometime next week with the release celebration coming on Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific and will last till Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific. So definitely some options there.
An early troop, a 2-cost 2/2, and not necessarily the card that you want to answer right away, but it is that enabler, and there are discard cards after it. So kinds of things Iron Inquisitor wants to put in. Ruby isn't usually a shard that discards your opponent's card specifically. There's a lot of self-discard. So other ways Iron Inquisitor can make you some Candlegast.
Indeed. All right, so don't forget we still have 2 more spoilers, 1 more after round number 2, or the semis, and then 1 after the finals. So stay tuned for that. And we are going to be bringing you round 2 matches, or semifinal matches. All right, looks like we're going to be featuring Bottle Gnomes versus Futures. So let's go ahead and take a look at those player cards again for those of you who may have not been here. Let's take a look at Futures player card. Is 28 years old, hails from Moscow, Russia, part of the Hexplorers. Again, has a top 8 in the CCS, a top 8 finish in the Bash, and a top 8, 2 finishes, top 8 in the 5 Shards weekly series. Is a 2009 WoW TCG Russian national champion. Considers playing aggro because considers that playing aggro requires as much skill as control to be the biggest lie in TCGs, and he plays aggro decks. So future in this matchup, and he's going to be facing off against Bottle Gnomes, which we saw earlier. So let's go ahead and get in the action here between both players. Bottlenose playing that Ixo, the Primeval deck, and Future playing Bardak, the Butcher. For Bottlenose, we see double Blood Shard, double Wild Shard, the Sown Strength, Vine Lash, and Green Grimplekin. Over for Future, we see Diamond Shard, a Blood Shard, that Polar Ferret, the Nameless Host, Runic Riddles, or not Runic Riddles, Runic Madness, the Maggot Swarm, and the 2-cost Diamond Steadfast Momentum Troop. Hacky, what do you think of these hands?
Fellow WoW TCG veteran Future has 2 resources in hand and a bunch of 3-cost cards. Maggot for early play into some berry. You have the Runic Madness again. We saw that in Future's previous match. Discarding random cards from the opponent's hand, as well as Polar Ferret. The ferret potentially coming in play. Future may keep this on the draw. We'll need another resource, but solid cards. There. But also, 2 shards is that risky play. 2 shards with no Fate Weave. Do I keep this? Can I play my hand if I'm stalled for a turn? What do I expect from my opponent? His opponent is Ixo, so that just suggests blood. But what flavor? Ixo Deathcry could be assumed most of the time, but not necessarily. Bottle Gnomes. And that's really it. Vine Lash in main deck for anti-flight, and Sown Strength for an extra Deathcry and +1/+1. I'm not sure if Bottle Gnomes is happy with this, but in previous games, we did see Bottle Gnomes has quite a few good early plays and can just keep these resources. It's threshold. I think Bottle Gnomes keeps this hand.
All right, let's get in the action here. Semifinals between Future and Bottle Gnomes. Both players guaranteed at least 500. Winner will advance to the finals for a chance at a $2,000 first place prize. Both players looking to make it there. Let's see how it works out for them. Both players playing out their standard turn 1 resources, with Future playing that Maggot Swarm. Back over to Bottlenose, finds a turn 2 drop with that Verdant Mixologist, decides with the Green Grimplekin. We go back over to Future. Diamond Shard now for him. No swing. Back over to Bottlenose. Munsagi Deadeye off the top. Swing for 1. And that Verdant Mixologist comes down for Bottlenose.
Both players finding the resources they need to continue on this.
Bottlenose looking for the ramp. Here comes that Merry Maple. Turn passes back to Future. We'll play out that Blood Shard, double Blood, double Diamond. 4 resources available. Devoted Luminous now a 3/3 Steadfast.
Getting Merry Maple out this early with Verdant Mixologist is going to be extremely good, as Future doesn't currently have an answer to these Merry Squirrels. Likely Polar Ferret going to be used to answer Merry Maple, but not before, and a swing is going to get through.
Runic Madness discarding that Vine Lash. Not too big of a deal here for Bottle Gnomes, considering there's no flight troops for Future yet. And we see that transformation with Merry Maple into that 6/6 Merry Squirrel for Bottle Gnomes. Full swing. Future here has a decision to make on the blocks. 11 damage inbound.
The obvious block would be to have the Maggot Swarm block the 2/2. Or Maggot Swarm can block the 6/6 for damage. Devoted Luminous can block the 2/2.
Decides not to. Sown Strength on that Verdant Mixologist. So Future down to 14. Bottle Gnomes with 10 more health at 24.
Really pushing that damage.
Here comes that Jubilant Jouster. Turn passes back to Future. Diamond Shard now at 5 resources. Devoted Luminous for 4. Winter's Grasp. Going to take out that Merry Maple. Back over to Bottle Gnomes. We see that Munsagi Deadeye. Grimplekin going to hit Future for 1.
Yeah, Winter's Grasp, excellent for Future. Future doesn't need to use the Polar Ferret. The Polar Ferret can be used on something else. It is very beefy when played for 6 as opposed to Frost Formed. is going to make this board much less scary on Bottlegnomes' side.
We see that Arctic Grizzly gain Future some health. Turn passes back to Bottlegnomes. Finds a resource. Grimplekin's going to swing in for 1. Herald of Roses. 4/4 life drain.
No undead on Bottlegnomes' side of the board for it to buff.
Back over to Bottlegnomes. Finds a resource. Grimplekin's going to keep swinging in with that lethal. Future will take it. Goes to 16. We see that Runic Decay here taking out the Grimplekin. And then a resource for Future going to trigger both runes here. As troops in hand are going to be affected, but no cards in hand for Bottlegnomes.
Display oddity with that Runic Decay. Don't mind it. To the crypt.
Blackbark Burster and Nameless Citizen for Future. So Future starting to build his board. Nameless Potter for Bottlegnomes off the top.
There is not an undead either. Stage 2.
Unable to capitalize off that Herald of Roses with no undead. We're back on Future's side. 6 resources available.
Bottlegnomes is out of cards. That Polar Ferret finally able to be played.
Polar Ferret coming down, targeting that Herald of Roses. Here comes a swing for 8.
Now Polar Ferret's just a big troop. Bottlegnomes out of cards. Future still got some left. And so Bottlegnomes' board is going to be dwindling from this point and needs to find something to call back.
Future at 16, Bottlegnomes at 13. Bottlegnomes' top draw is a Blood Shard. Can't swing. Turn passes back to Future. He swings. Bottlegnomes down to 5. Here comes that Nameless Host with the Berry for 3. Finds a Wild Ice off the top. I'm sure Bottlegnomes not looking for that.
Bottlegnomes is just down in this game 1.
Lethal represented on the other side. And that's going to do it. And Future will take game 1. Bring you game 2 action between both of these players, Future and Bottlegnomes.
Just one more game for Future separates him from the finals.
All right, here we go. Bottlegnomes here with opening hand of Blood Shard, double Wild Shard, double Nyctophobia. We saw those do work in the quarterfinals. Groundskeeper and Nameless Potter for Future. We see a Blood Shard, a Diamond Shard, Blightbark Vampire, Ebonhorn, Arctic Grizzly, Nameless Host, and that Polar Ferret.
There's that strong removal that Bottlegnomes was packing in the previous games, those Nyctophobias. We usually see them in pairs for Bottlegnomes when he has them, so there might be a third copy, there might be a few more, but those quick unconditional troop removals have been key. But Bottlegnomes doesn't have an early play, so it's a toss-up, I think, for Bottlegnomes, whether to keep this, getting close to that Groundscreeper Nameless Peddler, triggering every turn is just a ton of berry, and Bottlegnomes could actually win that way. At Nyctophobia to protect against that Polar Ferret. Future's showing the Polar Ferret now. Future doesn't have any low drops. All the earliest thing that could be played at 3, but Future might keep that as well. Kept the previous 2-shard hand and got a resource here. Just needs one more resource, and the Nameless Peddler Grizzly can be played. A 4th resource for Ebonhorn and the other card. So I think Future does keep that off that.
All right, here we go.
Risk.
Future with a 1-game lead, looking to close out Bottlegnomes. Let's see if it happens. Both players playing out their turn 1 resources. Bottlegnomes. Back to Future, 2nd resource. No plays. Corpse Mulch off the top here. We'll see that Nameless Peddler, though, for Bottle Gnomes. Turn passes back to Future. Diamond Shard comes down. Here comes that Nameless Citizen. Here comes the swing. Here comes the block. Troops trade. Cards are buried. We see that Arendelle Battlemaster for Bottle Gnomes.
And necessary. You don't want that Rage 2 mounting. You trade with it if you can, if you're Future.
Nameless Host is going to bury 3. Back to Bottle Gnomes. Finds a wild resource. Plays that out. See, Corpse Mulch and the swing and the block trade is happening here. Back over to Future. Now gets to his 5th resource.
If Bottle Gnomes can get a source of cheap troops, they can be continually sacrificed and for a card in 2 health, much like Zentos Malice.
Grizzly for Future.
In Primal Dawn.
Grizzly for Future. Groundkeeper for Bottle Gnomes. Back over to Future side. Now it's 6 resources. Activation of Champion Power. Loses a mouth, draws some card, but here comes the swing for 3. Future still leading in health, 25-21 over Bottle Gnomes. And here comes that Ebonhorn. Back over to Bottle Gnomes. Triumphant Buttmaster.
Bottle Gnomes did not take that block. Something was up, and indeed Future is holding a Runic Decay in case that block happened.
Here comes the swing. 5-6 lethal. Future takes it to the chin. Goes to 20. Groundskeeper triggering the Death Cry on the Triumphant Buttmaster.
So now these troops have momentum.
7 damage into Bottle Gnomes. 4 that's going to be Life Drain, giving Future 4 health. And here comes that Ferret. It's going to take out that Ground Creeper, so no more triggering of the Death Cry. Back over to Future. Now at 8 resources.
Bottle Gnomes can answer that Polar Ferret with Nyctophobia. It is quick, so maybe wanting that to spring a blocker on the opponent.
Future main phase here. Here comes the swing. Nyctophobia taking it out, bringing the Groundskeeper and the block. Remember, this is 4-5 lethal. See, Runic Decay and Sown Strength going to keep that Groundskeeper alive.
Had a feeling it was coming, had that protection against 2 extra damage.
Now on Bottle Gnomes at 10 health. Future at 27, gaining that health every turn with Ebonhorn. Buttmaster triggering, giving it up that extra momentum. Decides to do damage directly to the face. Nyctophobia taking out the Ebonhorn. Still going to take 3. Bottle Gnomes at 5. Future at 18. Does it go back to Bottle Gnomes 5 as an Exalted Kabbalist? Or Kabbalist. Kabbalist.
Death Cry possible.
And with that Groundskeeper, that is pretty nice here. Going to go ahead and use the Champion Power to take out the Blightbark Vampire. Swing for 8. Future will block. Triggers happening here with that Groundskeeper onto the Triumphant Buttmaster. Shards only for Future. He's at 13 health. Bottle Gnomes at 5. Arcing Venom off the top for Bottle Gnomes. Here comes the swing for 8. Block. Arcing Venom. Gonna go ahead and take out that. And Green Grimplekin. Activation of the Groundskeeper. Future at 8. Finds a Bone Tide.
I believe there are not 6 troops in Bottle Gnomes' crypt. There are 3 or 4. But Bottle Gnomes, off the back of these 2 troops, has survived Future. The Nyctophobias definitely have been key in this game. Coming a little late. Triumphant Mapmaster, there's no way to trigger that momentum, but still has to handle the Groundskeeper. Still sacrifice that target. Health.
Future here with a decision, trying to figure out what he can do with a Bone Tide and a resource. Not going to do it. Bottle Gnomes is going to force a game 3 here against Future.
Evening out the match, having key removal, Nyctophobia nailed some big threats with the Polar Ferret and the Ebonhorn Drain, getting back his Grounds Creeper and winning out on the value matchup there.
All right, so we're going to bring you this game 3 match between Future and Bottle Gnomes. Semifinals of day 2 coverage of the CCS. Future here on the bottom. Opening hand here, double Diamond Shard, Inner Fire, Dispel, Blightbark Vampire, Blightbark Burster, and Radiant Servant. Over for Bottle Gnomes, we see double Blood Shard, Arcing Venom, Triumphant Muttmaster, Nameless Peddler, Green Grimplekin, and Wild Mesa Speaker.
So Future and Bottle Gnomes both only have 2 resources and are missing their other threshold. Future could keep this with Radiant Servant and is 1 blood away from Blightbark, and has brought in the spell. Saw the Corpse Mulch in the previous game, so bringing that in to handle that in case that is a thing that has seen the Deathcry focus from Bottle Gnomes. Needs a resource at all to play anything. The Peddler on 3. Everything else needs a wild to happen, and the Triumphant Muttmaster needs 2 wild. May mulligan. There are better earlier plays from there. But may try to win off the Radiant Servant. But Future's also seen the removal for Bottle Gnomes and may think that in the worst case that might not be enough. However, there is Inner Fire for Future for +2/+2 and Life Drain, quick action. That's been used for some great trades in previous matches for Future as well.
All right, let's get into the action here. Both players tied at 1-1, looking to make the win and advance to the finals. We'll see standard resource play here.
Yep.
Radiant Servant turn 2 for Future. Back over to Bottle Gnomes. Still missing the wild. Future with his blood resource. Blightbark Burster comes down. Back over to Bottle Gnomes. Here comes a Blood Shard. Still missing that wild. Corpse Lily comes down for Bottle Gnomes, though.
Fortunately, Bottle Gnomes has a couple of plays in blood to play and can delay that wild for a little bit.
Blightbark Vampire for Future swings in the air, leaving Blightbark Burster back. Bottle Gnomes at 20. Future at 24. Bottle Gnomes finally finds a wild resource. Swing with the Corpse Lily for 2. Future takes that hit, goes to 22.
And that the sacrifice on that Corpse Lily with the Exo power is imminent.
Indeed, Corpse Lily. Champion power takes out the Blightbark Vampire. Nameless Peddler for Bottle Gnomes. Back over to Future. Diamond Shard. We'll play a Diamond Shard. At 5, Inner Fire, Dispel in hand.
To kill those flight troops when possible. That might be lacking it.
Bottle Gnomes will take that hit, goes to 18. With Mesa Wild Speaker. Here comes the swing. Block and Inner Fire on that Blightbark Burster.
I believe that Arcing Venom costs 2 and could be played in response.
And Arcing Venom is indeed played. Future will still gain some health, but buries some cards here, including Unravel. But finds a Threads of Life off the top.
Responding to the threat of the trade becoming uneven, lethal makes it a trade once again.
Future at 22. Bottle Gnomes at 15. Radiant Servant waiting to do its thing. We see that Nameless, the Threads of Life there to get the Nameless Host into play. Back over to Bottle Gnomes. We see that Pack Pummeler also buried as a result of that Nameless Host.
This Radiant Servant from turn 2 has done quite a bit. And Future's now on 7 resources and can potentially use it.
Day of Night here targeting that Radiant Servant, though. Gonna create a Candlekin. Turn passes back over. Bottle Gnomes with that Nightfall. And now Corpse Mulch and Monsagi Deadeye. Winter's Grass top deck for Future. The spell gonna take care of that Corpse Mulch.
Future's running out of board presence, though. The Bone Tide and Winter's Grass will have a bit of power to deal with the opposing board, but the Radiant Servant was a big source of damage against Bottle Gnomes, and that is gone.
Nameless Host inbound. We see a triple block here. No resources available for Bottle Gnomes. Damage going to be assessed. So completely wiping Future's board there. Triumphant Muttmaster is going to be met with that Winter's Grasp, but a resource being played. Mesa Wildspeaker swinging in for 3. Future at 17. Green Grimplekin here. And now we see that Devoted Luminous for Future.
Five troops in Crypt for Bone Tide.
Back over to Bottle Gnomes at Nightfall, ticking 1 a turn on Future's health. Resource comes down. Here comes the swing. 5 damage. Future at 11. Here comes that Kabbalist here for Bottle Gnomes. Back over to Future. That Devoted Luminous is a 3/3. Bone Tide. Going to take out that Mesa Wildspeaker. We see the trade here.
Players have low boards, but that Nightfall is ticking, ticking, ticking. If they are trading small boards right here, it's going to be Bottle Gnomes on top.
Bottle Gnomes at 13. Future at 8. Future taking 1 a turn at the start of Bottle Gnomes' turn. Nyctophobia taking that Squirmhound out. Here comes the swing. Future at 4. Here comes an Ebonhorn. Good troop there to pick up. Grounds Creeper is going to come down, bug out. And we're going to see that activation there at the end of the turn. Bottle Gnomes at 13. Future at 3. Called the Grave for Future, so an opportunity here.
Horn is great, but Bottle Gnomes now with that lethal Ground Scraper and the Green Grimplekin able to create a Cadaver Beetle every turn. Future needs to find a card in either crypt that he can play to stop this immediate threat, and that still doesn't answer the Nightfall, where Bottle Gnomes will win in 3 turns.
Future looking at his options with Call the Grave. Radiant Servant comes back in. Hild of Roses off the top for Bottle Gnomes.
And that also gives the Grounds Creeper +1 attack.
Full swing minus the Herald of Roses into Future. We'll see these blocks. Future at 1. Ebonhorn's going to get him to 5. Polar Ferret's going to come in and remove that Ground Creeper. Bottle Gnomes with just a resource in hand.
Gnomes can find a way to kill that Polar Ferret. It's going to be great for Bottle Gnomes. Does pushes damage. And that gives the Ixo power.
Here we go. Resource comes down. Sacrifice the troop. Kills the Polar Ferret, which brings back the Ground Creeper. Overwhelming Guilt, the top draw for Future. Future is at 1 health. He needs to attack here to gain some health.
Overwhelming Guilt isn't quick.
Here comes the swing and the block. Future at 5 takes 1. Here comes the swing, and that's going to do it. Bottle Gnomes will take out Future in the semis and advance to the finals.
A close match, really, that night, that one dark of night, creating that nightfall, pushing that damage. The Ebon Horn could not hold on. It needed to attack. So it was a lose-lose situation right at the end there. Bottle Gnomes' deck doing what it needs to do, surviving. Match by both these players.
Indeed. Which means we're going to be moving on to the finals, correct, Hacky?
To know who our second finalist is. Bottle Gnomes in the finals.
All right, so second semifinals match winner will move on to face against Bottle Gnomes in the final. This is going to be Arcaz versus Ruikthar. Take a look at opening hands. Arcaz playing Swamp Butt with Double Blood, Single Ruby, Runic Passions, Bleak Harvester, Failfield Guzzler, and Munsagi Deadeye. Over for Ruikthar, we see Triple Sapphire Shard, Dingle Dance, Lux Guard, Sapphire Ice, and Bleeding Heart. Hacky, what do you think about these hands?
It is actually a Diamond Ice, so I do not blame you for making that mistake. So Ruikthar does have Threshold, 4 resources, Lux Guard, little bit slow, but can Fate Weave a bit to help that, and that Bleeding Heart can create portals for days if Ruikthar gets there and has a chance to play it. But Arcaz, we saw Arcaz in Blood Ruby, an aggressive deck, Monsagi Deadeye, and the Feral Fuel Guzzler and Bleak Harvester all represent threats and can get some early damage in. Arcaz should be keeping this hand, so should Ruikthar, as they are getting their stuff done.
All right, let's get into the action here between Arcaz and Ruikthar, both players looking to advance to the finals. We'll see standard resource play here for Arcaz. We'll see a Fate Weave resource for Ruikthar. Back over to Arcaz. Finds a Munsagi Deadeye off the top to join the one in hand.
An immense amount of actions to help Arcaz at the moment get some Gladiator. Initiative Wax can generate a blocker Candlekin to help against these other troops.
Initiative Wax for Ruikthar. We see that swing with the Feral Guzzler. See the Bleak Harvester for Arcaz. Back over to Ruikthar. Initiative Wax triggers, creates that Candlekin. No swing. Back over to Arcaz. Squirming Terror off the tops. Arcaz will play out that Munsagi Deadeye Squirming Terror as we go back to Ruikthar. Verdict will give +1/+1 to Ruikthar's troops.
The other option must have been something really bad, like -1/-1 to the troops. And Arcaz probably not choosing that.
Now on Ruikthar's turn. No swing. And elects to play out the Lux Guard here, so a verdict for Ruikthar. And it was draw a card. Back to Arcaz. Finds a Killblade off the top. Swing with that unblockable troop for 3. Ruikthar at 18. Second, Munsagi Deadeye joins the field along with that Killblade. Back to Ruikthar. Resource. Bleeding Heart out. Back over to Arcaz.
Any point, Ruikthar can decide to Dingle Dance the Squirming Terror and end this threat. That's going to be pretty important, as Arcaz has picked up Nox Animist, which has the potential to give that Squirming Terror a bunch of attack.
So swing in here for 4. 3 of it's unblockable. Killblade's going to step in front, or the Candlekin's going to step in front of the Kindlekin, and we see the Nox Animist for Arcaz to end the turn. Decision point here. Plays the Altar, which was a portal. Aquamander comes down. Passes the turn back to Arcaz.
With Bleeding Heart, it creates an uncommon portal if you don't have a portal in hand. So if possible, Ruikthar is going to want to play those portal cards. And Altar will at least draw a card when that Sentry of Nulzon it creates is played. Rather.
All right, so now on Arcaz. Still has that unblockable Squirming Terror for now, at least in his eyes.
Could attack with Nox Animus, buffing the Skirming Terror. Ruik Thar still has 4 cards in hand, though, so has to wonder what is in there if Ruik Thar has something to answer this. Everything else on the board is rather small. Monsagi Deadeyes, if blocked and if they die, can kill the Aquamancer before it can make additional troops. Here.
Again, as a reminder, both players guaranteed at least 500, but they want to make the finals to be guaranteed at least 1,000 and ultimately to go after that $2,000 prize. Here we go. Attack for Arcaz.
For this has been holding up that Dingle Dance now.
And he does indeed swing with the Squirming Terror, the Nox Animus. Dingle Dance going to turn that Squirming Terror into a Dingler. Opportunity to capitalize here. Rune Snatcher is going to take that Runic Passions over to Ruik Thar. Nyctophobia for Arcaz.
That's actually pretty big, as Arcaz doesn't have much of a hand, and triggering that will refill and potentially draw maybe into some of the swamp gas. Be able to play it himself, however. Unless Bleeding Heart makes some Ruby Threshold, never know.
Possibilities are there. Kismet is fickle indeed. Arcaz with a decision point here.
Arcaz has picked up Nyctophobia, but nothing on the board right now is really a big threat. Perhaps the big initiative wax has been holding back the 3 attack troops from Arcaz this entire game, and Arcaz being an aggressive deck, probably that's been a stopping point, something blocking Arcaz from doing what his deck wants to do.
We'll see that Blood Shard. 1 card left in hand. Nyctophobia. Champion Power creates those swamp gases. We see the Altar of Nozan triggered. Create that effigy of Nozan. Remember, when Asakana troops played with Altar, it could be able to draw a card. We see Donnie Zedek's power activated, a verdict, which Arcaz will have to respond to. Sacrifice a troop to get rid of that Aquamander. Polyberry Pouch going to transform Candlelight Cavalry. Going to take out that Candlelight Victory, or Candlelight Cavalry. Wow, Emperor knocks off the top here for Arcaz, though. Attack phase for Arcaz.
Decides not to play it before the attack, though.
Here comes the swing. Life Drain there with that Bleak Harvester. Ruik Thar at 11, Arcaz at 23. Decree of Banishing going to take care of the Nox, so it is gone. Effigy of Nozan. Rune of Hatching. Cruel Sentence off the top will verdict draw a card is Trapper Keeper.
Heart creating a lot of uncommons that sometimes are useful and sometimes just get you some cool things. Even that Effigy of Nozan from the altar, drawing an extra card. It's all advantage.
-1/-1 selected by Ruik Thar to his troops. Back to Ruik Thar.
Arcaz is out of cards. The Runic Passion is gone. That would have been 2 extra cards for Arcaz.
Bleeding Heart doing its work, creating those portals. Woolly Moa coming onto the field. Arcaz finding nothing but resources here. And it feels like the tides are turning here for Ruik Thar.
even if the draws aren't perfect, this unhinged is going to be great if Arcaz draws a troop and tries to play it.
Here comes the swing. Arcaz can't double block anything and kill it. So just elects to block one. Now at 11. Health total's now equal. Portal activation gets a Death Head's Rider for Arcaz.
Enough things to scrounge for Death's Head Rider to force Ruthgar to sacrifice something, but Ruthgar has plenty to sacrifice.
We see the scrounge, so Death Head's Rider's going to come down. Unhinge, making it not as it never happened. And Arcaz here with a growing board state will do a swing. Arcaz now down to 3. Ebonhorn here for Ruikthar, and that is going to do it. And Ruikthar will take game number 1.
I said earlier in the game about a ruby threshold from the Bleeding Heart. Have happened. Bleeding Heart, absolutely the cornerstone of that game. Behind Ruikthar's win right there. Playing that portal card every turn. Cards appearing there, but created was enough.
All right, so we're going to bring you game 2 between Arcaz and Ruikthar. Winner will go into the finals to face off against Bottle Gnomes. And we'll take a look at opening hands here for both players. Arcaz with Triple Blood, Candlelight, Runic Passions, Templar of Lumos, and Bleak Harvester for Ruikthar. We see double Diamond Shard, double Sapphire Shard, that Borean Chimera, the Woolly Moa, and the Runic Hatching. Hacky, what do you think about these hands?
Arcaz definitely needs a faster hand than this week. We've seen Ruikthar's deck has a pretty good back end off the back of cards like Borean Chimera, Kakunamancer. So if Arcaz isn't able to close out the game or get close and finish it off, but then it might be Ruikthar's match, and it will be him in the finals. This hand doesn't help. The Runic Passion Templar of Lumos, even if there was a Ruby in here, needs one more shard. Bleak Harvester. We know there's faster cards in Arcaz's deck, and he may mulligan here to get started a little bit faster. Candlelight being one of the reasons for this Swamp Butt. Swamp Butt into Candlelight feels good. Oh, if that gets off, that will be super sweet, but not this early and not with no Ruby Threshold in hand. Ruikthar probably keeping this with Runic Hatching and the Woolly Moa. That is early 2-cost Fate Weave played as Frost form. Very solid hand for Ruikthar.
All right, let's get in the action here between these players. Winner will advance to the finals, face off against Bottle Gnomes.
Decided to keep this hand, so we'll have a Bleak Harvester at the very least, and we'll really want either some earlier plays or some to enable the later ones.
Standard resource play here for both players. No Ruby yet for Arcaz, finds another blood off the top. Aquamander off the top for Ruikthar. We'll play that out.
Go Aquamander into Brill Woolly Moa for an extra Aquamander.
So Sapphire resource here for Ruikthar. Back to Arcaz. Killblade joins the field.
Some resource efficiency with that sequence of plays. To the Righteous Exorcist out a little bit earlier.
Arcaz missing his Ruby. He has a bunch of Ruby cards in hand, but no resources or thresholds. Excuse me, no thresholds there to be able to play anything. Ruikthar here with the Aquamander Woolly Moa Phantom attack. Arcaz at 14, Ruikthar at 23. And we'll see that Lux Guard come out. Verdict gets rid of that Candlelight.
We saw this at the beginning. It seems to be happening. Arcaz missing a Ruby and Ruikthar having a solid early hand. Arcaz needed to win before a board happened. And Ruikthar with some solid play, elemental synergy board.
And here we go, swing again, minus the Exorcist. Runic of Hatching creates that Hailhawk. Squirming Terror for Arcaz. And here again, a swing, minus the Exorcist. Arcaz here at 10 health. 9 damage represented here. Gonna block the Aquamanders. Go to 5. Runic of Hatching could create another Hailhawk. Cruel Sentence, looking to find an answer. Not gonna do it here.
There is a solid deck with threats all around. I noted the late game threats, but it's really the Woolly Moas, the Fate Weave, just a solid curve all around. Evasion with the Runic Hatchings.
Has one troop.
Has had an ideal hand, would he have been able to hold off against this particular board?
Arcaz with a single troop at 4 health facing off against Ruikthar and his army. And unfortunately for Arcaz, no Ruby resources. No Ruby thresholds, and not much here for Arcaz to do.
It was a risky hand, kept it for that 1/3 drop, and it's going to be Ruikthar in the finals joining Bottlegnomes.
All right, so we are going to bring you the finals match between Bottlegnomes and Ruikthar.
Yeah, just waiting for something first. Because we have finished with the semifinals. Do we have a spoiler?
We do indeed have a spoiler. Bring that up. All right, so we brought you some Doombringer spoilers. If you're just joining the stream, we'll just recap those from today. Totem of Voidstar, 2-cost single blood, single sapphire, 2/2, Chaos Touch Troop. You can pay 1 to discard a card. This gets flight and lethal this turn. When this deals damage to a champion, put target card discarded this turn from a crypt into your hand. And Iron Inquisitor, 2-cost single ruby, 2/2, human cleric. When a champion discards a card, if an opposing champion has 3 or fewer cards in hand, summon a Candleghast. And a Candleghast is a 3-cost single ruby, 4/4 elemental. And this has -1/-1 in all zones for each card in opposing hands. So these are the cards we have spoiled so far, and we're going to do another one here for you right now. We have a great spoiler for you guys. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. It is Lurking Rotjaw. Lurking Rotjaw is a 3-cost, single blood, single wild threshold, 3/1 undead plant beast with Rebirth and Deathcry. Target opposing troop gets -1/-1. So an undead plant beast with Rebirth and Deathcry. Hacky, what do you like about Lurking Rotjaw?
It's a rebirthing Monsagi Deadeye. Is a good troop. This is in Prismatic. Rebirth, as a refresher, is a 1-shot Deathcry. If this is in your crypt, put it back into play. So you get 2 -1/-1. It's an undead. It's a plant for those synergies. It's got a lot of good stuff on that card.
Yeah, especially PvE. If it's got some PvE equipment, this could be pretty nice in those plant decks that people have built. Yeah, it's Rebirth is a really interesting mechanic, and I'm excited to see what players will do with Lurking Rotjaw.
Solid draft card. Will it be see play? It depends on how much Deathcry there is. It does have a Deathcry, so it fits potentially really well into decks abusing it. It's not the biggest body, though, and can be handled by a lot of removal, but we'll see what direction decks will want to take in the future.
All right, so we have spoiled 3 cards. We actually have 2 more, technically, that we'll do at the end of the finals. So more spoilers coming up for you.
We've got to finish this finals and see who is our Cosmic Crown champion.
All right, so we are going to be in the finals matchup here between Ruik Thar and Bottle Gnomes. Let's get in on the action. Both players guaranteed at least $1,000, but that winner will walk away with the $2,000 cash prize and the Cosmic Crown animated showdown sleeve. So let's get it going. Bottle Gnomes here, again playing Ixo the Primeval. We see double Blood Shard, Shard of the Ancients, a Wild Shard, Dark of Night, Pack Pummeler, and Munsagi Deadeye. Over for Ruik Thar, we see a single Diamond and single Sapphire resource, Runic Hatchling, Aquamander, that Borean Chimera, Overwhelming Guilt, and Cocoonmancer. Hacky, what do you think about these opening hands?
Bottle Gnomes is Deadeye into Pack Pummeler and a Dark of Night in hand. Get that Nightfall out. We've seen the Nightfall from Dark of Night be really key previously in this draft. Bottle Gnomes certainly keeping that Pack Pummeler for getting some Fate Weave. Just a lot of Fate Weave in Bottle Gnomes' deck also, smoothing those draws and getting the right thing, resource or non-resource, when Bottle Gnomes needs it. Ruik Thar on the other side has Aquamander, but two of his high-cost threats in Borean Chimera and Cocoonmancer really great, but with no way to Fate Weave in this hand. Ruik Thar, if he keeps it, will need to draw quite a bit to get there. Has only an Aquamander for early play, but a good variety of other cards. I think draw this as Ruik Thar. We're in the finals. There's an extra $1,000 prize at stake, but you've already done pretty well for yourself here. But you want to maximize it. I think Ruik Thar mulligans for a third resource on the draw, but I can see taking that risk and keeping it.
All right, let's see what happens between both these players. The bragging rights on the line as being our next Cosmic Crown Showdown champion. Let's get in on the action here. Looks like both players kept their hands. No, mulligan here for Ruik Thar. Down to 2 Sapphire resources. And elects to keep.
But those troops are much more in range of being played and has a Dingle Dance, so Ruik Thar will probably be fine with this.
We see a Shard of Ancients for Bottle Gnomes. Goes for that Wild Threshold. Back to Ruik Thar. Finds a Sapphire off the top. Will play a Sapphire. Turn 2 for Bottle Gnome sends Munsagi Deadeye onto the field. Another Sapphire resource for Ruik Thar off the top. Back to Bottle Gnome. Swing for 2. Ruik Thar 21. And we'll see that Pack Pummeler come out for Bottle Gnomes.
Unfortunately, with no troop in play to take advantage of this Dingle Dance, playing it is just going to be for stalling.
Thought Collector for Bottle Gnomes. Turn passes back to Ruik Thar. Bottle Gnomes doing some work here. Swings for 8. Ruik Thar at 11. Finally, Ruik Thar finds a diamond resource. Will champion power. Sacrifices the troop, that Thought Collector, which puts a diamond resource in Bottle Gnome's hand.
Ruik Thar back in this for a little bit. Play can just get removed by Dark of Night.
Decision point here for Ruik Thar. Luxgar is going to come down and Verdict, giving +1/+1, but Dark of Night's going to take that out. Nightfall is in play, so that's 1 point of damage with that swing. Ruik Thar at 4. Nameless Peddler for Bottle Gnomes. Here comes a diamond resource. Ruik Thar in big trouble here. 20 health separating both players. Staring across of him are 3 troops. Needs to provide some kind of stability here, or this is going to be over.
Thar can get a bunch of blockers in play.
But that Nightfall ticking down. Ruik Thar now at 3. So going to be dead in 3 turns with that Nightfall. Here comes the swing. Peddler swinging for 3.
Is dead. I believe that Vine Lash can be used on Snowpuffin to prevent it from being a blocker. No matter how the blocks go down, Ruik Thar takes 2 damage. Crush to take into account.
We see the blocks here. Damage is assessed. Ruikthar at 2, but that Monsagi Deadeye takes the last troop out. Exorcist comes down as a blocker. We see Ixo going to take that out. Ruikthar at 1, and that's going to do it. Bottlename's going to take game number 1 with authority.
Removal is key, and one of them is on the charge power. Important thing at the end of that game, Gnomes stole Kakuna Mancer, so Bottle Gnomes knows that that is in Ruikthar's deck. Little bit of knowledge helps. Bottle Gnomes knows that that is an option now.
All right, here we go. Game number 2. Bottle Gnomes looking to seal the deal and claim the crown as the Cosmic Crown Showdown champion. Ruikthar here, opening hand. Diamond Ice, Diamond Resource, Temporal Exile, Runic Hatching, Bleeding Heart, Woolly Moa, and Snow Puffin. For Bottle Gnomes, we see double Wild Shard, Shard of the Ancients, Wild Shard, Mesa Wild Speaker, Blightseed Fiddler, and Nameless Peddler Hacky. What do you like about these hands?
Bottle Gnomes has consistently been able to have a hand with a good early curve, a 2-drop and a 3-drop, and this hand is no exception. Blightseed Fiddler into his choice of 3-drop, the Nameless Peddler or the Mesa Wild Speaker. Peddler coming out early with Rage. I really like Bottle Gnomes' hand. Ruikthar with the diamonds this time and a Diamond Ice. A Woolly Moa if a Sapphire is pulled. A Snow Puffin regardless. Risky, but not as risky as the previous hands in the last game for Ruikthar. I think Ruikthar either takes the lesson of the last game and mulligans that for hopefully something better, or puts faith in that Diamond Ice and hopes for a Sapphire. But if that Sapphire comes down, another one needed. A lot of double Sapphire cards in Ruikthar's hand, but powerful ones, Runic Hatching, doing a lot of work in previous games, and Temporal Exile, and that Bleeding Heart at the end of that road. But dependent on what Ruikthar is feeling right now, especially after that last game.
All right, let's get in on the action here. Pivotal game here. Ruikthar needs the win to force a game 3. Standard resource for Ruikthar, Shard of the Ancients for a Wild Threshold for Bottle Gnomes. Blightseed Fiddler on 2 for Bottle Gnomes. Back over to Ruikthar finds a Swooping Gravitas. We'll play out that Puffin.
I fear Ruikthar's fears are potentially being realized.
Ruikthar activating Champion Power. Verdict. Decision for Bottle Gnomes. Wild Shard for Bottle Gnomes now at 4. Double Blood, double Wild Threshold. Mesa Wild Speaker will get a wild from the deck. Sacrifice that. Take the Puffin down to a -1 and 2 defense troop. Into the Halls of Twilight for Ruikthar, but Triumph of Muffmaster is going to come out. Buff up a troop with momentum. Here comes the swing and block. Ruikthar at 14. 15 with that Daybreak at the start of the turn. We see Runic Justice here. And this is just a sad state of affairs for Ruikthar with no Sapphire.
Ruikthar has been able to play cards, but it's not the ideal cards. And meanwhile, Bottle Gnomes has quite a board right there with Rage. I think that's actually lethal right now. Bottle Gnomes can trigger once again. To be it, tournament life staked on that final hand, and it did not turn out.
So that is going to do it. Bottle Gnomes will take this down, and it is your next Cosmic Crown Showdown champion.
Really, really solid, consistent deck from Bottle Gnomes. Ruikthar with a strong deck to show that consistency when it counted in this finals.
All right, guys. So we promised you 2 more spoilers. And we're going to do that right now. So first off, congratulations to Bottle Gnomes on that victory. Ruikthar, unfortunately, not able to find the thresholds and resources needed in order to mount a better defense. So congratulations to Bottle Gnomes. Will walk away with $2,000 and the animated Cosmic Crown Showdown sleeve. Ruikthar will leave with $1,000. Still not too shabby there. But let's go ahead and talk about that. We already showed you guys the spoilers already, so we're going to spoil something different. This is going to be one of the sleeves that you can find out of the Wheels of Fate for Doombringer, and it is a null here with a little bit of juice, been juicing up a little bit. So these are one of the sleeves you can find out of the Wheels of Fate for your chest spins.
It's a primal chest, I believe, because it has the key motif.
Correct.
In the Wheels of Fate, upgrade to a primal chest. Open that chest, you got a chance of this or two other sleeves, as is tradition in only in primal rarity chests.
Primal chest sleeve, yes, correct. Sorry, primal chest sleeves. A lot of people there saying it looks very nice.
This will be also the art on an alternate art card, also in the primal, not just primal chest, could be in any chest.
All right, so let's take a look at our final spoiler of the stream, and I'm going to say that I'm excited about this card. It's a legendary dragon. Legendary dragon. And let's go ahead and bring it up on the stream. This is Rakanzov, the Starved, 6-cost, single blood, single wild, 7/7 undead dragon with flight. It is a legendary dragon. If you would draw a card, put a random card from your crypt into your hand instead. If a card would enter your crypt, void it instead. So a dragon in blood and wild, prismatic dragon. I love the artwork on this. What do you think, Hacky?
It's an undead dragon. It's purpley and reanimated, and really fits that theme. It makes your crypt into your deck, and then you cards leaving play and going to the crypt get voided. I guess that's the price to pay for being able to draw out of the cards you can use. Is there a way to use it? I'm not sure, but regardless, 7/7 flight for 6 and some pretty easy threshold for that. So some high power. If Rakazanov is answered, you don't lose your cards to the void anymore.
Yeah.
A cool card to enable your crypt to be replayed. I'm not sure, but it's a dragon.
It's a dragon. It's a 7/7 troop. If at the base level, it's a 7/7 flyer for 6. So yeah, it's interesting for sure. So we have spoiled all our spoilers today. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the coverage over the last couple of days, or the last day, yesterday and today. Hacky, what do you think overall of the last CCS before the next set? What did you think?
We saw the pretty much the end of the maturation of this metagame before Doombringer is out in the Swiss rounds, in the constructed. Mono Blood is going to continue to be pretty cool, but all the decks are going to be gaining new cards in Doombringer. We didn't see any Mono Blood carry players into the finals, but it was almost there. Players taking all of those previous results into account. Haraza making a good last hurrah with the Major Ruby of Charge Game before that rotates out. But overall, a pretty good variety in that constructed, and was happy to watch yesterday. And this draft showing some very solid drafting from Bottle Gnomes, some very consistent decks, seeing Portal and consistency. A lot of the intricacies of pod drafting coming out, seeing in a lot of interesting hate drafting going on, as hate drafting in a pod setting means that cards that other players would have wanted aren't in, and players playing with lower power cards. And as well, mulligan decisions being very important, especially in the later later matches here, some risks being taken. Some of the risks worked out, and some of them did not. But regardless, a little bit of luck, some deck building skill, and solid play has seen Bottle Gnomes come out on top
Yeah, I
today.
couldn't said it better myself. Definitely some interesting decks in the constructed, and it's always fun to see what people bring. We saw that Ruby Wild um, double damage Quenchinator deck do some work as well, and just it's good to see the overall health of the game and see players from all over the world compete and do well. We have players from Japan, players from Germany, players from uh, Argentina, the U.S. and all over competing and trying to vie for the $5,000 prize pool. So really great there. One more reminder for everyone. The release celebration for Doombringer is going to start on Friday, the 16th of March at 10 a.m. Pacific. It will end the Monday, the 19th of March at 10 a.m. Pacific. So make sure you guys get in on the action. As a reminder, too, with the Doombringer release, if you are in the draft queue and you're looking to get those sleeves, this is your last opportunity to get those sleeves from the draft. As Corey said, they will be going away for good. Excuse me. So make sure you guys get on those drafts while you can, and then get ready to celebrate Doombringer's release celebration Friday through Monday. Hacky, any final thoughts before we end the stream?
It's been a very fun Cosmic Crown showdown from the Swiss portion into the draft, and it's been a lot of fun. Once more, congratulations to Bottle Gnomes. Also, congrats to everybody in the top 8 making it this far and taking home a piece of that $5,000 prize pool. It's been a pleasure casting with you, Snake, this Cosmic Crown showdown.
Indeed. Thank you, Hacky, and thank you everyone for watching. And get ready for Doombringer. We'll see you guys later. Take care.